All right, welcome, everybody. This is the Xbox 2 podcast, episode number 300 something. I'm not even sure, 336, I think. On a beautiful Saturday, October 18th, I am your host, Rand Thor19, the man with the million, and I am joined, as usual, by my lovely cohort, who has braved the wastelands of Stalker 2, Jez Corden, Windows Central. What's going on, buddy?
Hello, buddy, palsy, me old mucker. I've literally just flown back.
Excuse me?
Mucker, yeah.
That doesn't sound like something very pleasant.
Oh shit! Did I go too British there for a moment?
I have no
Me
idea.
old mucker? Yeah, I went too British there. Sorry. That's a British thing. But yeah, how you doing, man? I have literally just flown back from the UK, back to Germany. It feels weird to say that as a Brit. I've just flown back from the UK, because usually I'm saying I've flown back to the UK, but I've just flown back from the UK back to Germany, and then going back to the UK again in a few weeks. But yeah, I've it's been a busy few days for me, a busy couple of weeks for me, really. So I got home. And I was tired, so I had a nap. So I just woke up. So we're full of beans, and we're ready to rock with some podcasting action, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah. You all right?
I'm still thinking about the word mucker.
Mucker. No, it's mucker.
Mucker. That's very interesting.
You can't say mucker. You have to say mucker.
Mucker. Well, so
mucker.
Yeah. The reason we're doing this
like
on Saturday is because you were at an event on Friday, yeah?
Playing Indiana Jones.
Playing Indiana Jones in the Great Circle, because they had press previews this week in San Francisco and LA and London and stuff. So, did you run into anybody you knew there? Any friends, any peeps at the Indiana Jones event?
I ran into one of our mods at the event.
Really? That's interesting.
Wolvie, which is awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So shout out to him. And so that was wild. I also met some people from Pure Xbox, which is a good website for Xbox content. And it's Danish TV channel, gaming channel wanted me on video.
Really?
I was like, no thanks. But maybe we could do something online later day. But yeah, it was fun. It was cool, man. Fans of the show came up, said hello, shook hands and stuff like that. There was a lot of press there. A lot of press, a lot of creators. It was an awesome venue. They did events. They did events all over the world. So like there was an event in LA, I believe.
Yeah, LA,
San Francisco, and there was an event in London. I don't know if there were events anywhere else, but yeah, I didn't. So sadly, I didn't get to see Colt and Paris and some of the other cool dudes from the community. They were over in the US events, but the British event was really cool because they held it inside. Like an old-fashioned London college that looked suspiciously like the college in Indiana Jones. I can't remember the name of the college. The in Connecticut, where is it Marshall College? I think where Indiana works. I think it's Marshall College in Connecticut, if I remember correctly. It looked like that on the inside, like it was all old-fashioned and stuff. And I had an interview with the creative director, which I can't really go into details about yet, but I had an interview with the creative director, and that was in a room via a secret door in this crazy old-fashioned London college kind of place. So it was really cool. It was a really cool event. I got to play the game for 2 hours, which was awesome, and a bunch of other stuff. I can't really talk more about the game and my impressions of it until October the 29th. Hoping to have a video up for that as well. For people who don't like reading, I'm trying to do a bit more video. My Stalker 2 preview video was pretty well received, I think. Even though I made it very, very quickly. Widya in chat says, "Did you run into Sika Mechanico from Xbox Hero?" I didn't, because he was in the morning session, and he literally left to go and pick up his kids from school as I was arriving. So I just missed John Sika Mechanico from Xbox Hero, unfortunately. So there was a morning session, an afternoon session. I was in the afternoon session with, and I think there was a lot more sort of European main press in that event, I think, as well. But yeah, I sadly didn't run into John, but you know, there'll be other times, I'm sure. But yeah, it was cool, man. It was a cool event. It was well put together.
Yeah, sounds like fun. Sounds like a good time. Anything else happening this week for you? Anything else going on besides taking a trip to London to play some Indiana Jones?
I mean, there's a lot of under embargo stuff I'm dealing with right now.
Yeah, those embargoes.
There's a lot of big games coming out in the next few weeks.
A lot of big games.
So a lot of those games are now ensconced with my team.
Ensconced. That is a good word. I like it. You have my approval for that. Yes.
You're like ensconced. Yeah, I like that word. They're ensconced with my team, and we are working through guides, content, review content, and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of like where my attention's been this week, has been travel, and then on a bunch of stuff I can't talk about, which is problematic, obviously, when it comes to doing a podcast. But there has been a lot of news this week that we need to talk through.
There's a lot of stuff,
and there's a lot of stuff.
Should be a good show.
Yeah, it should be. There's a lot of stuff to talk about.
Unless you hate me and Jez, then it will be a bad show, and then I question why you even bother listening at that point. I mean, hate watch all you want, I guess, but I wouldn't spend my time watching something or listening to something that I hated. I would go do something productive with my life.
Yeah, but you know, if you want to hate, donate as well. I mean, that's cool.
I mean, yeah. I mean, we used to have people that would, some of these PlayStation guys that don't like us would donate some stuff and be like, PlayStation 5 is better, or whatever they would say. And it's like, okay, whatever. But anyways,
PS5 better arrow.
Yeah, welcome to the show, everybody. Make sure you hit the like button for me and Jez. It's free. It's down on the right hand side. Usually, whether you're watching on PC or mobile, it's free. Click that little button. Share this out. Tell everybody that we are live on this beautiful Saturday. And make sure you check out the Patreon, patreon.com/XB2, where on Tuesday we did a exclusive Xbox Ultimate podcast. It's like 2 weeks in a row, so you can always check that out if you want something to listen to. We did have plans. It was like we had somebody. That's the problem with doing a podcast like 2:00 in the afternoon, is sometimes people's schedules don't align. So we had somebody lined up, and then all of a sudden they were busy. And then we were like, oh, we asked somebody else, but they were busy too. So it was kind of like, all right, well, we'll just do a regular one. So hopefully we can have somebody on this Tuesday. So, stay tuned to that. The question and answer thread is up for any of the Patreon members who want to drop a question. So I'm going to give the shout outs to the wonderful Xbox 2 MVPs, Jez. Ready?
Yeah, man. Let's do it.
We got I'm Like Zero, Tier, Shrapnel, Inner Machine, Just James 93, Jay Peltier, Holy Dark Death, Steve Stompy, James Wiseau, Trickster for Trey, Will Hernandez, Battered Haddock, Dude 52C, Ryan Kipple, Foreign Object, Mythic Marty, Moronic Donkey 99, Randall Thor 19, Silas, James Moore, Fantasticals, K-Trox, Bright Tundra 1, Discarded Caboose, Justin Duel, Frank Mariano, PB Roking, Ace of T and Madison, Governor Grimm, DZ Huffin, Wagerman, Achievement, The Scarecrow 121, Adam Bartolo, and Darren Trophy, Prof. JJJ, and Wolfgang KPZ. Thank you guys so much for supporting the show. It means a lot to us. So, yeah, I mean, my week, Jez, it's the same old kind of stuff, right? Not really much going on. It's not as eventful as yours, where I'm like flying to different countries to play games. Although I was invited to the Indiana Jones event, but I couldn't make it, unfortunately, which is sad. Sad, but
probably other times.
Yeah, other times to do some of that stuff, because that is probably my most anticipated game the rest of the year, is Indiana Jones, coming out December 9th or December 8th, somewhere like early December, because they still have that early access stuff. So Yeah, you know what? I don't know. What do you want to talk about first, Jez? What do you
You're gonna
think?
have to you're gonna have to fill me in a little bit because I am a little bit out of the loop. I
Fill
haven't watched
you
the partner.
in.
Yeah, fill me in. I haven't watched the partner preview event yet because I
Uh
had
huh.
no time. And obviously when it was happening live, I think I was on a plane, so there was absolutely no chance of me seeing that. Um, and also there's been a lot of little bits and pieces of news that have come through the week that I've seen go live on Windows Central that I haven't actually fully investigated yet.
Right.
There's a ton of stuff that's gone down. Craig Duncan, he's
Yeah.
now, just to recap quickly, Craig Duncan is now
Well, I
leading
guess that's where
Xbox Game
you're gonna
Studios.
start. So, Craig Duncan promoted
Yeah.
to the head of Xbox Game Studios. What does that mean? Alan Hartman was the previous head. Well, it was like Matt Booty was the head of Xbox Game Studios originally, and he's taken on many more responsibilities, right? Because now he's like the puppet master or the overseer of Xbox Game Studios, Bethesda, and Activision Blizzard, and everything that kind of entails those things. And that is a lot to cover. Some think that's just too much to cover, realistically, right? Two whole publishers plus your own internal 15 studios. But obviously they have people running each. Like there's somebody that runs Bethesda and somebody that runs Activision, and now somebody that runs Xbox Game Studios that report up to Matt. And previously, when Matt Booty got that promotion, Alan Hartman, who was kind of in charge of the Forza franchises and Fable, uh, through his time at like Turn 10, he was the head of Xbox Game Studios, but he's retiring. And Craig Duncan is now promoted to head of Xbox Game Studios. So, what does that mean, Jez? What can people expect? Or is it just going to be business as usual? Probably don't really expect any significant changes. I do hear that Craig Duncan is very much well liked within Xbox and the dev community there. So,
Yeah, it is interesting, specifically the appointment, and I suppose because Alan Hartman, obviously, known originally for Turn 10, right? But it's with Craig Duncan coming on, also Craig Duncan being UK based as well. It's sort of like it's specifically interesting because I kind of feel like that's again a little bit of, speaking like geographically at least, I feel like that's a vote of confidence in the UK side of their operations a little bit. Because I don't think Craig Duncan's going to relocate to the US for that. I wouldn't have thought. Maybe he is, and I'm just out of the loop a bit. Um, but Alan Hartman is a legend, in Microsoft. I think he's been there for decades. I'm just going to quickly look that up. Yeah, he's been there for 30 years. So I didn't even know it's been that long. So Alan Hartman's been at Microsoft for 30 years. So that's like a pretty illustrious career. And he moved up relatively recently. Wasn't it like a couple of years ago? Last year even?
it was a couple years ago. I think it was
Yeah.
around the time
Go look that
I
up.
think it was around the time they acquired ABK, because I think they shuffled a lot of their positions, and I think that's when Mac got the promotion, and I think that's when Alan.
It was last year.
Oh, it was
Well,
last
Alan,
year. Okay.
so Alan Hartman's only been in the job for a year, and I suppose like if you are sort of coming to the end of your career and you've been there for 30 years and you've contributed to growing Forza into what is an industry leader. Let's be real. I kind of feel like it's probably a good. It's a you've gone pretty far in the industry. It's probably a good time to retire, right? And it does say that he's retiring. He's not moving on to another company or anything like that. So, with that sort of structure in place, it probably is again sensical that you put another veteran in there. And Craig Duncan's been there for quite a long time now. He's obviously grown. He hasn't been with Rare since the start. He's not an OG Rare dude. But, Sea of Thieves is Sea of Thieves represents, I think, what Microsoft wants to achieve with more of its Xbox game studio specifically, which is sort of turning lower budget experiences into big AAA wins. So like I'm thinking of things like Grounded, stuff like Flight Sim and stuff like.
I disagree with you with that because I don't think Sea of Thieves was a low budget game by any stretch of the imagination, though.
I mean, comparatively speaking, it's not like a low budget game, but I'm just saying it's like it's got really great margins, over time. Where it's that kind of like, it's not a super risky business proposition. I'm talking like service games. I'm talking like, Forza Horizon again is not cheap indie game. Obviously it's AAA, but it's also like, it's comparatively has a less risky business model attached to it than something that would be single player without microtransactions, which costs the same amount of money. Do you know what I mean? So like
Sure.
that sort of live ops DNA, and that sort of like, here's our roadmap towards monetization kind of thing. Craig Duncan really represents that. I think the modern Microsoft sort of like live service kind of game experience, unique live service kind of game experience, like your Grounded, stuff like that. So Craig Duncan knows that very well, which is why I'd be really interested to see what his tenure looks like over time. And it's difficult to sort of grasp what exactly their involvement is per individual within the hierarchy, because it's not like Craig Duncan is actively going in there and developing games, right? But he'll be like approving pitches from the studios, I suppose, or contributing to that effort. And also, looking at how to budget things, how much each studio gets, and that kind of allocation, and then working with Matt Booty, I guess, to figure out what that looks like,
Well, and also figure out and greenlit the type of games, the future games that Xbox Game Studios are going to be working on. Yeah, that would be
exactly
part of his job. I mean, you could look at it like similar to PlayStation when their former head of studios left and Herman Hulst took over. When Sean Layden left and Jim Ryan took over as the top dog, Herman Hulst got promoted, and most likely it was because of the success of Horizon, right? Like Horizon kind of is that like one of their premier franchises, and you can tell they're trying to do a lot with it, right? You have Horizon Zero Dawn, Horizon Forbidden West, and then a Horizon Zero Dawn remaster 7 years later, a Lego Horizon game, a Horizon TV show that I think was kind of put on ice, a Horizon Online co-op game that they're working on, and a Horizon 3 eventually. Like, they're doing more things with Horizon than they even are with like God of War or any of their other franchises. So what they do? They put Herman Hulst in charge. Now, putting Herman Hulst in charge, does that lead to them doing more Horizon stuff because he is from Guerrilla? Maybe, maybe not. So I sort of look at it like in a similar way, okay? Matt Booty was put in charge of Xbox Game Studios, I think, frankly, because he took Microsoft's, Xbox's biggest acquisition at the time, Minecraft, and he not only shepherded it, like kept its players, but significantly expanded it, where it became, what was it? I think before, when Xbox bought them, maybe they had sold like 20 million copies, and then under Matt Booty's reign, it was like 200 million copies or whatever. Remember at the time, back in 2014 when they bought them, Jez, I don't know if you remember, but people were like, I don't know why Microsoft bought Minecraft. That's $2.5 billion wasted. Look at Disney buying Star Wars and Marvel for $4 billion. That's a much better investment. Do you remember these conversations?
I do remember, like, there was serious and like big industry and tech analysts and financial analysts saying that Microsoft investment in Minecraft was insane.
Yes, that they spent way too much money and that the game wasn't going to grow and it reached as many people as possible. And here we are in 2024, and it's like the biggest game of all time. And Matt Booty, I'm pretty sure, was in charge of that. So it's like, who do you put in charge of Xbox Game Studios when there's an open position? It's like, well, the guy who basically ran Minecraft and, was in charge of, basically the growth. So it's like, okay, he's in charge of everything. And it's like, you're looking at, who do we promote at Xbox Game Studios, right? From all the different studios they have. And, if you talk about probably the biggest success story from last generation, and even like now, you probably mentioned Sea of Thieves, right?
Yeah.
It's also kind of a flagship game for them because it also was the poster boy for the multi-platform approach about, how well it did on PlayStation, right? Selling millions of copies over there and whatnot. And it's a game that started off rough, as we all know. Sea of Thieves didn't have a lot of content in the beginning, and instead of shuttering it in 2 weeks like other companies, they let it grow to become one of the most popular live service games out there, 40 million players. And so how do you reward that? So because nobody else at Xbox, like Halo Infinite we haven't gotten any numbers since the 20 million, and the leadership team was all ousted, right? Bonnie Ross was her name, I believe. I forget what was her last name.
Ross.
Gears never, Bonnie Ross. Gears never reached those sort of levels, even though Jez will be like, Gears is amazing. Gears never reached that type of levels, and I think Gears has kind of been on the steady decline since 3 anyway. So it's, you think about, okay,
Gears is bottlenecked by its rating, and you said earlier, like, Sony's doing a lot with Horizon instead of God of War, and it's because Kratos rips people's heads off.
Yeah.
You can't market that to kids, right? Gears of War has the same issue, I think, which is why I think Halo sort of pushed a little bit too far in the sort of family-friendly zone, I think. But anyway, that's a separate conversation.
I was just trying to position this as like, who else could they have chosen? Who else has that big of a hit recently for them, and is kind of also like, hey, this is what we want to do with the future for some of our games. And like, realistically, it's really only Craig Duncan. I mean, you already had a guy from Turn 10, and he's now leaving, and you look at the other studios, and none of them have had as big as a hit as Sea of Thieves. Mm-hmm. Although it will be kind of interesting with what happens with Everwild, because while Sea of Thieves has been a success for 6 years now, there's the chance, obviously, that Everwild comes out and is completely unique, and it blows up in a similar fashion as Sea of Thieves. And then everybody looks at it and is like, okay, Craig Duncan was the right choice. Look at Sea of Thieves, Everwild under his stewardship at Rare. Okay. But there's also the chance that Everwild comes out and, we don't really see a lot of live service games, launching new anymore and essentially becoming a staple for players. They kind of maybe get some playtime for a couple weeks, maybe a month or two, and then the player pool kind of goes back to the games they were playing. And I was just kind of like, well, now you put Craig Duncan in charge of that, and what happens if Everwild is just a big, huge, fat flop? And,
I've got shreds of details on Everwild recently, and I feel like Xbox internally has recently become a lot more confident in Everwild. Now, that doesn't mean a lot, since they've been confident in other games that weren't spectacular before. Sure, yeah. But it sounds like Everwild has started to hit its like they've nailed down what the core fun of the game is now, the fun loop, which I think they said before, like they were trying to find the fun.
Well, I mean,
it sounds like they're moving in the right direction with it now, is from what I've heard.
The reporting was even back in 2019 when we saw that first trailer at an Xbox. What event was that? They did it 2 years in a row. Oh, the XO event. It was like XO 19. They did XO 18 and XO 19. They dropped the trailer for Everwild, and then they showed the trailer again, a new trailer in 2020, and then the reporting came out that there wasn't even really a game. Like at the time, it was just a trailer. I'm saying it would be kind of funny if, you promote Craig Duncan from the Rare studio, and their next game ended up being like a massive flop or failure. Because then what is that? So then you have a guy running Xbox Game Studios whose last game was, you know what I mean? Like, optic wise, or even, you know, as a leader, it's like, well, why would you want that person leading your team? If his last game was like a huge flop, it would be like, well, shouldn't we have somebody else? Maybe this does speak, you know, a lot to how they feel about Everwild and how it will be positioned when it does release. Or I think it more says that, you know, Sea of Thieves is that game, and maybe they can get away. Well, you know, Craig Duncan wasn't there when Everwild came out. I don't know. These are some of the things I was thinking of. It's like, hey, you know,
Well,
I don't know if you necessarily want like, hey, the head of our Xbox Game Studios' last game was a complete disaster. You know, you wouldn't like promote the head of Fire Sprite who put out Concord and put him in charge of PlayStation. You know what I mean? PlayStation Game Studios, right?
Sure, no, but like, you know, I think maybe that does show that there is some, you know, there's a vote of confidence for Everwild there potentially. You know, if you are thinking about it in that context, but you know, if you go back far enough, like Matt Booty's had some, you know, failures under his belt as well, and sometimes it's like it's also about how you deal with and handle those failures. Because you remember, when Sea of Thieves came out, it was not popular, it was not feature complete, it was not successful, it reviewed very poorly. And a lot of people didn't enjoy it, and frankly, still don't enjoy it.
Did you enjoy it? Did you like Sea of Thieves?
My feelings about Sea of Thieves were weird because it was like I really enjoyed it when I was playing with a very specific group of people. Like, we had fun with it, right, on stream once, I think, and I had a blast once playing with Roby, but it was just like, I can't play this game without these optimal conditions. Like, I couldn't log on and play it solo for myself. So it was just it was very obvious very quickly that it just wasn't for me in any way, shape, or form. But I didn't begrudge anyone that was enjoying it. I almost felt jealous that they were enjoying it because it was like, I like pirates, I like the Britishness of it, all that kind of stuff. But it was just like, there's nothing to progress with here. You know, I want to see. I want something to unlock that isn't a cosmetic, basically. So I didn't really enjoy what they were offering there, and even now, like, it's still not my kind of game. Like, the sort of the lack of, you know, something tangible to chase, I think, for me is an issue. It's not like in Diablo where you see like, oh, okay, I'm level 1 now and I do 100 damage, and I'm level 100 now and I do 10 trillion damage. You know, it's literally like, it's a me problem, the reason I don't like it. So, you know, I don't begrudge anyone who does like it. And also I hate the PvP aspects of it, you know. But you're not a big fan of it either, right?
I mean, it's not my type
It's
of game.
undeniable that.
It's not my type of game. I mean, I wouldn't say I dislike it. The times I have played it, it's a pretty looking game. You know, it's always fun playing in co-op with your friends, but it's also a game that I have no interest in, like, playing for a long time, because I think the rewards are all cosmetic based, and I just, you know me, I don't give a flying fuck about cosmetics, right? I think that was one of the problems a lot of people had with Sea of Thieves, was like, they do all these things, they get the chest, they get the money, and then the only thing to use with the money is just, oh, I'm gonna get a saber that looks different, or a different shirt, or some sails on my ship. And, you know, once I done a bunch of missions, because I think I played it for a good amount of time, I was just like, I don't really have any incentive to play this anymore. I don't care about cosmetics. I've been to all the different places you can go. I mean, this is obviously when it first came out and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, I could see, I don't care about the PvP aspect, so it's not that I dislike it, it's just I did no reason to keep on playing it, like, you know. And my friend group wanted to play other things at the time, like PUBG and stuff, which is something that I was very much into. So
Yeah, like the lack of I don't know. I didn't like the long stints across the ocean, and I know they've sort of tried to address some of this stuff. I know there's sort of a kind of fast travel now where the ship dives under the
Yeah.
water and stuff like that, and also that I know that there is a PvP off mode or an opt-in PvP mode. But it's the progression layer is just not something that interests me. But anyway, like on the topic of Craig Duncan and stuff, I think I think it is a vote of confidence in him, and I think you could interpret it as a vote of confidence in Everwild, because I've heard internally people are positive about Everwild now. I have no idea what the game is still yet, but it does sound like there is this upswell of positivity internally about Everwild, which makes me think that it must be in a good place now, or a much better place, and we'll probably see that game revealed next year, or maybe even at the Game Awards.
As I was gonna say, like
the amount of
see it
chatter
soon.
about I think the amount of chatter that I've seen about Everwild makes me think that it could be gearing up for a reveal either at the Game Awards or maybe a June showcase next year.
What about
So
a developer direct?
yeah, maybe even that Developer Direct. When was that? Last year,
I mean,
February,
those are in
January?
January, like late January.
Yeah, I mean maybe that's
But
your
but
Developer
that would
Direct
be
thing.
assuming also that Everwild is releasing next year, because they kind of scope those in the projects that are releasing in that current year, right?
Well, hey, it could be. I think that my main issue, I suppose, but this is true of like Matt Booty and Craig Duncan. And like I was talking earlier about how um so sometimes employing people that have reacted well to their failures is also something you want. And like Matt Booty famously was
Mm-hmm.
running Midway when it went bankrupt, and then he moved from that to turning Minecraft into a absolute phenomenon in terms of like its licensing and its footprint and stuff. And so you learn a lot from your failures, right? I think Craig Duncan they probably learned reams of stuff from Sea of Thieves' initial reveal to what it had to do to overcome that. And I think that's also a valuable experience, right? And it's experience that you can apply to other games and other studios and other studios and other situations going forward. So like, that's a kind of stability and experience that you can't train someone for necessarily, I think. Um, yeah, John Brown in chat says hard knocks learn. So
Yeah,
so I think Craig Duncan's appointment makes a ton of sense, and it probably does bode well for Everwild, I would say.
very
But
curious to see what that game is. Right, we haven't seen
I'm
it since
I am super
2020,
curious.
and we never really seen gameplay. We know it's some sort of co-op experience, right?
Yeah,
Whether it's like 4 players. Very very curious to see what Everwild ends up as, for sure. Don't know if it'll be my type of game, like Sea of Thieves was, but you could probably I would hazard a guess that whatever it is, it's probably a unique experience within gaming itself, and especially a live service, because that's one of the reasons why I think Sea of Thieves has been so successful. There's really no other game like it. And sure, it struggled in the
super
beginning. There wasn't a
unique.
lot of content, but they stuck with it and made a lot of stuff. And the fans kind of, they gravitated to it, started playing it more and more. I mean, for your shooter needs, you got plenty of games you can go out there and you can wet your whistle. But if
Yeah.
you want to be a pirate, there's really only one. And so it's like, okay,
Hey, you could play Ubisoft's
yeah, no,
quadruple A
yeah,
pirate game if you want.
nobody playing Skull and Bones.
No,
And
you don't want to play Skull and
and
Bones,
even
Red?
then,
Oh,
it's
okay.
not even that similar to Sea of Thieves. So I could see Everwild coming out and being unlike any other game currently on the market, and maybe carves a niche out for itself in that regard. But they did
Niche.
promote, like, I think Joe Neat and somebody else are now co-heads of Rare.
Yeah, and
So
I'm guessing they're doing a co-head thing because someone needs to develop the game still, but someone also needs to handle the business side of things, right? Especially as they're going into
well, that's how
potentially launching.
343 changed, right? Because you had Bonnie Ross in charge of everything, and then when they
Yes,
got rid of all the upper leadership, they basically, it was like 3 studio heads. somebody to handle the business aspect, somebody to handle, the dev aspect, and somebody to handle something else. So it almost kind of seems like, hey, we're instead of putting everything on the one person, we're gonna break it into, this person does this, and this person does that, right?
Yeah, I think so. Because games are so much more than just like you publish a game, you ship it, and that's it now. Your live ops, your post-launch support, your monetization strategy, your licensing, your merchandising. Like, how do you grow the franchise beyond simply being a one and done kind of experience? Like, there's so much more to what a game looks like now that you kind of do need that kind of operation. If you do have that kind of ambition to take something further, like with your Halo and your Minecraft and Forza and whatever and stuff like that. So it'd be interesting to see the way it goes down the line, and and what it looks like. One thing that I do think about is Microsoft's like studios are so very geographically spread out, and one of the factors I heard, which led to Tango GameWorks being sold off to Krafton, or potentially shut down initially, was its location, like the being able to support them effectively from the mothership of Microsoft in the United States. And so much of Microsoft operation now is so spread out across Europe, obviously the UK being the main epicenter of that. But it's like there's so many American studios that would need a lot of support as well. Probably next year you're gonna have a reveal for State of Decay 3, I would guess.
We did just get a reveal this past showcase.
No, but I mean like a full blown.
Yeah.
Not a choreographed sort of gameplay slice. I mean like a full blown. This is the minute to minute gameplay loop, and this is the launch day. I meant by that, more of a deep dive into it. You're probably going to get that. I think State of Decay is going to be a big part of the marketing next year for them. Are we getting close to Clockwork Revolution being ready? And then you've also got isn't South of Midnight for next year as well?
South of Midnight, Doom, Dark Ages, Fable and Avowed are the games currently earmarked for 2025.
So those are mostly American games, right? So I would hope that.
Well, no, I mean Fable's UK.
Yeah, mostly though American games.
Fable's
UK.
Sure.
But I suppose Fable is the big budget important one, probably the big risk one, I would say. I have no idea if Fable's going to have some kind of live service attached to it. I've heard that there is going to be. I'm not sure how true this is, but I've heard that there is going to be some form of character creation in it, to some degree. I don't know if that's just pick a gender, or if it's going to go deeper into customize your character, and then
Fable games always
kind of
were you pick your gender, and how you looked was determined based on the morality. Like, were you good?
Yeah.
You start kind of, your features were kind of becoming more angelic. Were you evil? You start sprouting horns. Now I don't know if they'll go to that, because it also seems like they kind of want a photorealistic take, whereas Fable was always more of a storybook look to it, where it was no big deal if your character had horns, because that's what it was going for. But in the videos that we've seen of Fable, just kind of the art style that they're going for, it would be pretty odd if your character was walking around with horns. But maybe that's, I don't know, maybe that's something you would see in mirrors, or necessarily other people wouldn't see, but then you might see yourself, where it was like, I don't know.
It's fantasy, at the end of the day. Maybe you grow horns and then people look at you with fear and stuff, because the games used to do that kind of thing. But I'm just saying, like, there was speculation about it being like a set character,
sure,
where it was like, okay, this is the character you play as, because they actually hired a model for the character, at least in the trailers. But I have heard that there is some kind of character customization in it, as was the case in the older games. I think they just haven't revealed who the default skin is for that yet. But then it's like, because Fable's. My point was going to be that it's a monstrously expensive game, probably the most expensive game they're developing right now. So you would think modern era Microsoft would have some kind of post-launch monetization strategy, service kind of strategy for that game, maybe.
Yeah.
but maybe they don't. Maybe it is just going to be a pure old school. Oh, this is actually just a video game kind of thing. It feels like nowadays it's just like it's so rare to have a video game that is just a video game and not some kind of okay, it's a video game, but we also want all of your free time and also a part of your soul in the process. So I'm curious about that, but I kind of feel like the amount of Hollywood that is in Fable in terms of big budget actors like Richard Ayoade. Chris Ayoade? That's not someone who exists. But Richard Ayoade is like, he's a big celebrity.
I could see there being a co-op element. I could have sworn there was kind of
there was co-op in Fable 2 and 3.
There was,
wasn't there?
There was, but I don't really think it'll be co-op in the sense of, hey, you can play the whole game with a friend or something. I don't know if I was told this directly back in 2018 or if it was just kind of rumors going around, but like when the rumors were going around that Fable was being a game at Microsoft, I had heard that there was going to be co-op, but essentially like the game was single player, but then there would be these really tough dungeons and you would go into those dungeons and it would be 4-player co-op in that dungeon to get through. I don't know. I for some reason that's always stuck in my mind. Like there might be dungeons you could play through in co-op with other people, but then like the game itself would still be single player. I don't know. The problem is we don't know much about Fable, right? We've seen a couple trailers. Not even sure if those those characters that are in those trailers are even in the game. Like, are they just for the trailer? I mean, I think the Jack and the Beanstalk one is clearly in the game because it had gameplay shots behind it, but we don't know much about it, and I'm very keen to find out more about Fable, and hopefully we, if it is coming out next year, maybe we get a developer direct. That'd be a great time. Next year, developer direct in January, seeing South of Midnight, seeing Doom: The Dark Ages, which they've showed exclusive gameplay at their QuakeCon event. So,
oh man, I'm so ready for that, man.
So it's like, and if they have anything else, like, man, that is going to be super cool. But
it could be a really huge year for Microsoft next year. For all the games they've got planned for next year really, really land, like Doom and
hopefully they can have a year. Hopefully they can have a year where they don't have to delay anything.
Yeah, I suppose that'd be something, wouldn't it? I mean, we're well beyond blaming COVID, I think, at this point.
Yeah, like I wonder if Obsidian's like, man, we shouldn't have delayed Avowed because Assassin's Creed Shadows moved.
I have asked people at Microsoft about that, and I think they are thinking about some stuff with regards to that, but I don't know if they're going to change the launch date at this point.
Well, you see, we're going to talk about the partner preview in a minute, but
I wanted to ask you first before we go any further. What game is playing? This is Gris on screen,
This is
right?
Neva.
Oh, it's Neva, not Gris.
This is
I think it was Gris
because this is from the studio who made Gris.
Oh, it looks
This is their brand new game that just came out this week.
So this is Neva. I suppose we'll talk about that more in a minute.
Well, I was going to ask you. I wanted to ask you about Stalker 2 because you went and you played it. You wrote an article about it, and I think your whole takeaway was that it's fucking amazing. And you said it was a Game of the Year contender. What's going on, Jez?
Hell yes, dude.
Because first time you played this game at Gamescom a year ago, I think it was. Gamescom 2023.
No, I think.
Well, you didn't go. You didn't go. Yeah, because you didn't go to Gamescom this year. You went last year.
I went last year.
You played a build of it, and you said it needed more time in the oven. You said it was really, really, really rough, and that you didn't like it. And here we are a year later, and I think you told me it's like one of what you played of it. You liked it so much it might be one of your favorite games in a long time or something. What happened? What's going on?
Well, dude, I think before we get deep into Stalker, we should hit some super chats because they're getting backed up.
All right,
let's hit some super chats and have a little break here.
All right,
and then we'll talk about Stalker 2.
All right. We got Chuck Norris with the 5. I hope your super diet is helping you lose weight and feel better. #health is wealth. I wouldn't necessarily call it a super diet, but I am doing my
From
best.
what you've told me, it's a fucking super diet, dude.
Yeah.
You are unironically eating cauliflower
Broccoli.
on purpose.
I mean, hey, gotta get those veggies in, bro. Gotta get those veggies in.
Fucking broccoli, cauliflower. That is the super diet
Brussels
to the
sprouts.
max.
Yeah, but I mean,
Brussels sprouts.
you gotta load up. You gotta load up on the veggies, bro.
What is wrong with you? See that's how I know you're serious. If you're eating Brussels sprouts.
Well, it's because we're
like-
doing a high protein, no carb, right? Like
Brussels sprouts,
steak,
protein?
chicken breast, fish, shrimp. Like last night for lunch,
Shrimp.
shrimp is great. Last night I for lunch I air fried up like 20 shrimp, and had a big bag of broccoli for the side, and then for dinner I air fried up a chicken breast and had that with some cauliflower. So yeah, I mean,
Dude,
it's all
my,
eating.
my jaw's on the floor right now, dude. Everyone in chat saying cauliflower and broccoli's delicious.
It
Brussels
is.
sprouts are great. What is wrong with you,
Dude,
people?
what is wrong with you?
There's a vile, like, oh god damn. Brussels sprouts. Andy, do you like Brussels sprouts? See, even my girlfriend eats vegetables and she hates Brussels sprouts. So you guys are cooked.
Dude,
Randy, you are cooked.
Dude, cauliflower's great.
It's disgusting, man.
Broccoli's great. You know, put some like salt and pepper on. Not, you know what? Also, you can no longer call me Randall no seasoning, because I've been getting into seasoning because I've been eating a lot of chicken, a lot of steak. So I have been experimenting with seasoning. And oh my god, I never knew some of these things could taste so good. Well, because it's one of those things where I didn't want to eat just chicken unseasoned forever. So I was like, let me get some of these seasonings. So I got like mesquite and smoke, like all these different sort of types from, I think McCormick or whatever, just trying out different types. And I'm like, oh my god, this stuff is amazing. Air fryer, bro, changing the game. I've always heard about air fryers, but I never used one. And I'm not someone to really like cook with an oven, but this air fryer is so easy to use. It's like somebody made like, when we were growing up and the girls would have easy bake ovens, it was like so simple, whatever. It's like this, like literally even I can cook, and I'm cooking up like fish and steak and chicken and shrimp and all these things, and it tastes so fucking good.
Dude, everyone in chat is clowning me for not eating vegetables, and I'm like, actually, I eat the best vegetable, beans on toast, because toast is technically a vegetable. It's made from wheat, and wheat is a plant, so toast is a vegetable. Beans grow on a tree or something, or I don't know what the fuck they're growing. Beans are a vegetable. Beans in tomato sauce. Tomato is a plant. So there you go. I'm basically a vegan, bro. Basically a vegan, essentially.
So
yeah, I mean, cows eat grass, and that means cows are made of grass. So you could say beef is a vegetable if you want to stretch. I will say,
I mean, I know you don't like vegetables. I don't like fruit. I don't like apples. I don't like.
You don't like fruit?
I don't like strawberry. I don't like any fruit. I just do not like fruit. But vegetables, vegetables are great. Carrots, broccoli. Asparagus. I don't know what it is. Like, I love vegetables, even like green peppers and red peppers and stuff. I do not like fruit. But yeah, I've been really going hard on this diet. I've been not cheating on it, and it's basically just high protein, no carbs. So I haven't had any bread in like 3 weeks now. But yeah, I've been air frying up these meals, and shrimp. I don't know. Like I didn't know chicken and steak and all this stuff could taste so good. So, yeah, and trying to do my best, and it all ties in with the camera, because I saw someone asked for the camera before, but it's like, if it's the surgery on this skin tack I have on my face, and then like hopefully I can continue with the diet, and then I'll be like, all right, we'll be on camera podcast. That's what I'm waiting for. I said it would happen. It's just a matter of timing for me, but yeah. So that's what after the show, as soon as the show's over, I'm gonna go upstairs and I'm gonna cook a steak with a side of broccoli, and then for dinner I'll have probably another steak. So
yeah,
It's good stuff.
I've been dieting as well. I've lost 30 pounds since July.
That's good.
You know, so we all being healthy now, turning 40.
Yeah, we have Luke Vanderos with the 5. People are saying Goat Gaming is bad for gaming. Do you think his gaming news is good or bad for the industry?
I have no idea who that is.
I think I know who that is. It's someone who basically posts kind of fake news to make somewhat like companies seem bad. Like he's someone that kind of just makes shit up and post it, and I don't like. I can tell it's just for shits and giggles, right? When you read it, it's like Sony people say that Xbox is beating them into the dirt and blah blah blah, and it's like they use like made up quotes from executives or whatever.
Just like making shit up.
They're just making shit up and making it like kind of it's like it seems like it's an Xbox fan that makes fun of PlayStation a lot, and it's really just he's just a guy that makes shit up, but he like posts it unironically as like breaking news, and a lot of people because a lot of people are idiots think it's real, and they're like, oh my god, this really happened, and then some are just like, you shouldn't be doing this. This is misinformation and stuff.
Media literacy is dead.
Sure.
So if you want to, the thing is, it can be funny. Like if you're trying to be funny and satirical, then it can be funny if that's the intent. But if the intent is actually to just be a dick, which is probably, let's be honest, more likely the case, then it's a different situation, isn't it? So I'm using Twitter less and less. I use apps to just automatically post.
I was ahead of the game, bro.
You were ahead of the game. You were definitely ahead of the game. So it's just another.
I think it would be fine if like in his account it just like said parody. So like you saw it and it was like, oh, this is all just for jokes and giggles, because that's kind of what it already is. Because people will send me that and they'd be like, "Is this true?" And I'll read it. I'm like, "This is like the biggest bullshit I've ever read." And I'm not sure it's like it's such bullshit that you're supposed to assume that it's fake, but so many people believe it. Yeah. So I don't know, whatever. Twitter. I mean, anything goes on Twitter these days.
Well, I think people are gradually starting to realize that you can't take anything posted on the internet at face value anymore. I mean, you never could really, but I think a lot of people are increasingly starting to recognize when something's a grift, when something is just, in bad faith. And these terms like grift, whatever, they're starting to go mainstream now. People are starting to understand that, oh, this person doesn't actually believe what they're saying. They're just trying to create discord because they can't get laid or whatever it is. Whatever deficiency they have in their life is, made up for by spreading just bullshit and negativity all the time.
A lot of it spreading bullshit and negativity is because they get paid. A lot of the big ones on Twitter get paid by Elon, and then there's the YouTubers with the whole culture war stuff going on.
I mean, YouTube is one thing. Like the Google pays out a lot of money. Twitter doesn't pay out jack shit. So
I mean, did you see some of the payouts some of the bigger people on Twitter get? It's ridiculous.
Not like any of these console war troll accounts.
Oh well, sure, not the console war troll accounts, but like the big. I mean, obviously, I'm talking like the big time.
The big. I imagine that the Twitter payouts are probably graded on a curve, similar to TikTok. So like on TikTok, it's like if you're like a smaller account, you'll get jack shit, but then eventually you'll hit sort of like, oh, you're in the top 5%, and suddenly your earnings go way up. Like on a really steep curve. And Twitter's probably similar. I don't know, but. It is what it is. It's satire's evolved to the point where it's like, what is satire anymore? We have people who could have been considered satire now, running for political office. and the real world doesn't even exist anymore. What is real, Rand? What is real?
I
don't know.
I don't like Twitter, but I will say it is still funny to me anytime something bad is announced for the platform. Like most recently with the block feature, right? Where apparently like people you block can now just view your post, but they can't engage, which is a dumb decision. And I think it's entirely down to revenue because Elon wants people to be like see your post and then see the ads tied to it, even though if you can't engage, right? Or maybe he just wants everybody who has him blocked to be able to see his tweets, right? But every time something like that happens, and trust me, I have no love for Twitter. Everybody's like, follow me to Blue Sky, follow me to Threads, and they post their pictures of their blue. And it's like every time I see it, it's like such an 100 followers, and then they have like one post. It's like nobody's using Blue Sky, nobody's gonna use Threads, but it's just like all the same people all the time being like, this place sucks so much, find me here. And then you look there, and they don't post anything because they're still posting on Twitter where their follower base is. I always just have to have a good laugh at that because it's just like, yo, if Twitter goes down the tubes, then I just won't be, the only social media platform I'll be on is Discord and YouTube because I'm not going to make an account on Threads or Blue Sky. I just don't, I barely tweet on Twitter as is. So why would I go to those other places? I just don't care. I find it just amusing every single time it happens. Follow me on Blue Sky. Come on, guys.
No, I ain't going to Blue Sky. Like I'm on Threads because I already got an Instagram account. So
see, I don't even have an Instagram account.
Yeah, I don't know. Like Threads is fine. Like I'm quite enjoying using Threads. The community is quite positive there, and the engagement's not far off hitting the same level as Twitter now. So, when you post a link, so Twitter's fallen off so bad that Threads is almost basically the same kind of engagement that I get there now, which is hilarious. But I don't know, man. Like social media is just cooked in general. I wish I didn't have to use it, but unfortunately my job revolves around posting links. So until that changes, I'll still be on Threads or Twitter. And Paris is really flying the Blue Sky flag. I see in chat. Come to Threads, man. I swear to God, I don't trust Blue Sky. Like these small startup companies, like they're like one security flaw away from being a disaster story with your data and stuff. So I like, as much as I dislike Zuckerberg as well, at least Instagram has a proven track record of end-to-end encryption and security apparatus that is at least proven to some degree. That's why I pick Threads over Blue Sky generally. I think like if any of them are going to take on Twitter for relevance, it's probably Threads because all the celebrities already got Instagram accounts or whatever. But who cares? It's all bullshit anyway. So I wish I didn't have to use any of them.
Castmy says, "What is a mucker?" Yeah, what is a mucker?
A mucker, if you go on the dictionary,
you mucker.
Cambridge Dictionary. Apparently, according to some sources, it was a Royal Naval term for friend or comrade back in the day. But yeah, I don't know. Just one final point on Threads. Phil Spencer started using Threads.
Oh.
So Phil's posting on Threads instead of Twitter now, and I think Sarah Bond is as well. So, and that's to be expected because Microsoft owns a pretty large percent of Facebook. I think it's like 3% or 4% or something like that. They were an early investor in Facebook, so like. It's that often Microsoft partners up with Facebook on all sorts of things like the Game Pass with the Meta Quest, and when Mixer died, it was Facebook Gaming that absorbed it. But I think Facebook Gaming's dead now as well. So Mixer's double dead. But yeah, that's why you're seeing like Phil Spencer head over to Threads, I think. But yeah, Mucker, I don't know. It's a Manchester thing, I think. Sometimes I have no idea why I say it. I don't usually say it. I think it's just because I've been to London and I heard Londoners saying it. Maybe I don't know.
we have
Ellie Bennett says it's Yorkshire green. Yeah, I think it's northern, but everyone says it all over the place now. I think.
Web Dave with the 199. He says Rand and Colt together on Sunday. Can't wait, buddy. That's right. I'll be on Web Dave's show tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
So that'll be something to look forward to. We got achievement. It says, could you give a shout out to one of my best boys, Titan, a dash hound? He was a good boy. Got mauled to death by another dog. Oh man, sorry to hear that, man. Achievement. Got mauled to death by another dog. A dash hound. I believe those are little hot dogs. You know, little long dogs.
Dachshund,
whatever. But yes,
a dash hound.
Titan was a good boy, and he was one of the best boys, and we'll miss him.
Yeah, that really sucks.
I still miss Shakespeare. Every time I go upstairs, and he would always be waiting at me at the top of the stairs. You know, but
yeah, I was literally thinking about Shakespeare the other day.
A big dog.
I was thinking, I'm sad I didn't mix.
The only person who got to meet him was Cognito, and him and Cognito formed a bond. It was great. Cognito was walking up to the door because I met him outside, and Shakespeare is standing in the window, and he just starts barking. And Cognito was like, "Is it okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, he's fine. He's just barking because it's a new person." He gets it. We get in the house, and like Shakespeare like sits down and he's like putting his paw out to Cog to shake. And he was petting him and stuff. It was good. Miss my doggy. We got RDX on a Fett with the $6.99. I have to recommend Squirrel with the Grunt. It's a great platformer, tons of fun, and superior cheap. And there's a Game Pass discount. Love Xbox 2. The Jez Show. Just kidding. No, it is the Jez Show. Onyx,
Squirrel with the Gun does look cool.
It does.
Check it out.
Onyx Gaming with the 5 says, Jazz, what is wrong with Forza Motorsport? The game is a mess. Still incomplete 1 year after launch. They use screenshots. They don't look like the game.
Honestly, don't know. Like, I haven't been following the Forza Motorsport stuff very much, which I suppose speaks to its popularity. My attention often goes where the algorithm takes our traffic, ultimately. And I think the fact that our Forza Motorsport coverage never gets any hits is probably indicative of the game's popularity, which is why I haven't been putting much resources there. So it does sound like Forza Motorsport's not, lived up to what people's expectations were, especially when, you brand it without the number on it. So it's almost like a reboot of the franchise in a way, or a reboot of the numbered franchise.
Mm-hmm.
When you just drop the numbering altogether, it's like, yeah, this is the definitive Forza Motorsport. This is what we want it to represent going forward. And it's just like, oh, it's not been very well received. But JB 521 says it just got a big update, and I do remember reading about.
There's been a lot of updates that have come to the game. I mean, it's Metacritic. It's an 85. I think it won Best Racing Game at GDC last year, or this earlier this year, and it was Best Racing Game at the Game Awards. So I think there's kind of a disconnect between what critics want from a game, who would just probably play it for a little bit, versus what hardcore fans want from the game, right? Considering this is a sim racer. So maybe there's some hardcore fans that are disappointed. But I mean, I do see like they're updating stuff all the time. So I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I haven't played it since it came out. I think I put 30 hours into it during the review period, and that's it. Like, I don't really care about Forza Motorsport. I care about Forza Horizon. And I think that's like what everybody cares about. They care about Horizon. That's not to say that there aren't, there isn't a group of people that love Forza Motorsport. I just don't know on what level that game is at now, or if people are happy with it or not,
Yeah, I might try and look into it, but it's like my team is so spread thin, right? We are so spread thin, and I think all publishing is experiencing this, where it's like there's so much to cover and not enough money with which to justify covering it. So like the laser focus often has to be on what's the audience interested in, and the fact that like nobody there's no engagement for Forza Motorsport content compared to Forza Horizon. Like Forza Horizon still does very well for us. It just kind of goes to show how Forza Horizon's really
Forza Horizon's
eaten the lunch
also
of
has been consistently, if you look at most played games on Xbox, like top 15, top 20. It's just been a stalwart staying in that spot where I think Forza Motorsport quickly dropped off the top 50. I don't know. It's kind of, I think people just enjoy the arcade race, which is, how often do you see a spin-off game eclipse the main game almost to make the main game irrelevant in people's eyes?
It's not often.
You don't really see that very often.
No, it's a good point.
We got Crippling Debt with the 5 says, what do each of you think will get a 2025 Direct, and what do you hope they are if different? May not be 2025, but I really hope State of Decay 3 gets a Direct. You mean like an individual game?
An individual Direct that's all about that specific game. I was literally going to say State of Decay 3 as soon as that question started.
But he said
answering off that question.
A 2025 Direct though. I don't think State of Decay is. I don't think State of Decay is coming next year.
Yeah. No, but like, wouldn't a Direct be just to be like, this is what the game is? It doesn't necessarily have to come out in 2025. You could be like, this is the Direct.
No. He said the Direct He says the Direct has to happen in 2025. Not that the game's coming out in 2025, but I don't know why you would do a Direct for a game if it's not coming out that year. Yeah,
maybe it's coming out in January and you're doing the Direct in June.
State of Decay 3 is not coming out in January of next year or the year after.
The year after?
I'm gonna go and say there's gonna be no State of Decay 3 Direct in 2025.
Yeah, but he said, what would you like?
Oh, what would you like? Sure, yeah, you would like that, of course.
State of Decay.
Right, but do you honestly think State of Decay is releasing in 2025? I know that answer. Yeah, so why would there be a Direct then? As much as you would like it.
Because it's my fantasy fucking world.
I know, but he says, what do you each think will get a 2025 Direct, and what do you hope they are? Not like, what's your fantasy prediction? Yeah.
Okay. What I hope there is State of Decay, but what I think there will be, probably Doom Eternal.
Doom Eternal, that's from 2020, my friend.
No, Doom the Dark Ages.
Doom the Dark Ages.
Doom the Dark Ages. Yeah, Doom the Dark Ages, because I want to believe that Doom the Dark Ages... have they confirmed whether there's going to be multiplayer in that or not?
They have not, unless they've said at one of those QuakeCon things.
I want to believe that Doom... Because even though, like, Doom 2016's multiplayer was not... It didn't blow up. I personally really enjoyed it. I kind of want them to give that another go. I love that I love the arena style violent shooter. It was kind of like, it was what I really genuinely felt like this is missing from my life, is this sort of Quake style arena shooter, you know. And I know a lot of people say, well, just play Halo. Like, Halo ain't like that. It's got shields, it doesn't have gore, and it's not ridiculous and over the top. It's like Halo's like more sort of tactical and, you know, and all that kind of stuff. I just want the unmitigated violence of Quake and Unreal Tournament. And Doom 2016 multiplayer gave me that for a while. And Joaquin Branch in chat rightfully says Certain Affinity made the multiplayer for Doom 2016, and they just got acquired by another studio, which I suppose we might talk about a little bit more in a little bit. But so yeah, if Doom the Dark Ages does have, like, it is moving towards having also like some kind of multiplayer like aspect, whether it's like a horde mode or some kind of ongoing system. I just hope it's not like the 2v1 asynchronous experiment they did in Doom Eternal. I really did not like that personally. I know some people did, but I want them to go. I want them to be a little bit more ambitious with if they are going to do a multiplayer, and I hope it justifies having a full blown Direct. But yeah, that's my answer. What's your answer, man?
I mean, I think Fable will get its own Direct, considering I think like they spent a lot of money on that game. I could definitely see Fable getting.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably also will say Call of Duty, whatever the next one is. I think Tom Henderson was reporting that it's a sequel to Black Ops 2. Is that in like the near future or something? The 2025 Call of Duty. We know that'll get its own thing because they usually do for those.
Is that not kind of weird? A sequel to Black Ops 2 in the future? It kind of feels like scraping the barrel there. Like, we're going to have 2 Black Opses in a row? Isn't that weird?
Well, technically, isn't Black Ops 6... That's not... Black Ops 6 is... It's set during, like, the Cold War. Well, I don't know.
The timeline's fucked up.
Well, because a lot of the... Yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see it, but I know Black
Yeah.
Ops 2 was kind of futuristic. God, it's been a long time since I played Black Ops 2, so.
I can't remember Black Ops 2 for
But I
shit.
mean, they mean like, oh, it'll be set in like 2030, 2035 or something. So 2 Black Ops games in a row, and then most likely Infinity Ward's probably working on a Modern Warfare game.
I really want. I know they can't do this because the whole business model revolves around the annual $70. But I really don't think you need a new Call of Duty every single year. I mean, I know it's crazy to say, right? I mean, are there big Call of Duty fans in chat who agree or disagree?
You know what they would say?
About
You know what you would say?
what?
Call of Duty every single year is a ritual.
It is a ritual,
Mm-hmm.
but I also think like for the series health and longevity, I think sometimes like if you don't have a really good, compelling idea, maybe you should give it a rest. But
Yeah,
apparently
they ain't
this
giving it a rest,
new
bro. There's too much money on the table to give it a rest, and they've given some of the studios like longer time, right? 4 years for this one, 4 years for the Modern Warfare one. They got probably more studios and people working on it than ever, so they're trying to give them more
oh,
time. So yeah, I mean, I know we were probably a little when we were talking about like what Microsoft would do with the ABK. There was that hopium. They was like, oh well, maybe they don't have to do Call of Duty every single year. And now the realistic business of it is like, no, they're doing it every year because they ain't giving up that cash flow.
yeah.
So
Well, RF rightfully says in chat the series health is the best selling game every year. So it's true. Like people, it is the best selling game every year, and even when it has an off year.
will it be the
You know,
best selling game this year though? I don't
what
think
because of Game Pass?
well, no, because I don't think it was the best selling game last year. Because I think Hogwarts was number one, wasn't it? It's a
But
pretty
what does it have going against it this year?
Black Myth Wukong.
Yeah,
Black Myth
yeah, but
Wukong's already
is Call
sold
of
over
Duty
20 million. I'm just saying.
is Call of Duty even sold in China?
No, but if you're talking about games in general and what was number one, like even I think MPD last year it was Hogwarts.
Well,
This year, yes. In MPD or US market, it'll be Call of Duty for sure. But like you're
I'm
talking
gonna move.
worldwide.
I'm gonna shift some goalposts here, man.
Oh, shifting the
I'm sorry.
goalposts. Okay.
Like you're fighting with one arm tied behind your back because a Chinese company can sell any game they want in America, but a Western company can't sell any game they want in China. So it's like, you know, how you can't really. It's not a fair comparison, you know, in my opinion. When like you have to go through all kinds of censors to get your game sold in China, and then also give a chunk of your profits away to a local publisher, you're not competing on fair terms there. So I don't think that counts.
Okay.
Personally.
Fair enough. But did you hear I saw a Wario post about this. Apparently Black Myth Wukong has been rated by the ESRB for Xbox.
Yeah, that was another thing. Did you get through all the super chats?
No, I just wanted to mention it because I had mentioned Black Myth Wukong and it was
Okay.
like hey, it was it's right there.
Yeah, Black Myth Wukong was already rated by the ESRB previously, but the ESRB rating's been updated. So some people have took that to mean that it could be imminent for Xbox. I don't know. I'm actually actively, as we talk, trying to get some details about what that means. If it was already done, if it means that it's coming imminently, or if it's just, you know, setting up. Because, you know, we knew Black Myth was coming for Xbox.
Yes,
I
it
heard
was
the
just a
build
matter
was
of
basically done.
how long
It was a matter of how long, you know. So the exclusivity period couldn't have been a long time because Sony, they didn't offer them marketing support really for Black Myth. It was all about engineering support from what I heard. And they took a period of exclusivity in exchange for getting the game more polished and using Sony's advanced technology group equivalent, you know, because Microsoft has its advanced technology group, right? And Sony wielded that as a way to you know, extract some very potentially brief exclusivity period out of the game. But it does sound like the game is pretty much ready for Xbox and probably going to launch fairly soon. I would be intrigued if like could it drop in November?
I mean,
And then like, is that going to be? That'll be super irritating because it would drop on top of Stalker and stuff like that.
I mean, if
in a
ESRB
sense.
updated it now, I'd be like, yeah, I was thinking like, there's a part of me that was thinking before all this today with them updating the ESRB for Xbox was, what if they just pulled a Baldur's Gate 3 and it was like available at the Game Awards, play it on Xbox. Remember how I said
Yeah,
when Baldur's Gate 3 got delayed for Xbox, I said it'll release the day of fucking
the
the
Game
Game
Award.
Awards because it just made the most sense. But I don't
So
think.
I mean, that'd be a good way to advertise it, I suppose, and that'd put it December 12th, which I think is a good launch window for it.
Well, that's like
Um,
right on top of Indiana Jones, or a little bit after Indiana Jones. Maybe
yeah.
they might want it like out there beginning of November. That there is a window now with Assassin's Creed gone and Avowed gone. Right, you could put it like maybe a couple weeks after Call of Duty or something. Since Call of Duty is next week, which is pretty fast.
Stalker is
But
November 20th.
November 20th. Yeah.
Um, man, it's starting to feel like there's too many games again. I haven't even touched Metaphor at all. Um, MechWarrior 5
Hey,
Clans just launched, which
Dragon
apparently
Age
pretty good as well.
coming out in like 2 weeks, right?
You just reminded me. I need to use that code.
I wouldn't say like, is anybody playing it? I don't know if you can even say that. It's probably under embargo.
I can't talk about
Yeah,
Dragon
you can't
Age.
talk about that. RDX
Well, I can talk about our preview of Dragon Age.
Oh, sure, but I don't want to
We did a
talk about.
preview,
I don't want to
but-
talk about your preview of Dragon Age. I want to talk about your preview of Stalker 2. But let me get.
Yeah,
I
let's
got
talk about
two of
that.
these up. We got RDX Son of Fat says Twitter's just Nazis now, and just remember Elon is white South African and is owned a diamond mine. Yeah, so.
Mm.
Let's talk about Stalker 2
Yes,
because
go.
you played it and you think it's amazing when before you thought it was kind of bad. So what changed and what has really gotten you so excited about this game to the point where you're calling it potentially a Game of the Year contender?
So when I first played Stalker, it was at Gamescom. I think it was at the the press preview event where it was closed to press. The booth was closed to press, and we could get hands on with stuff. I don't know if they actually removed those booths after the press event because I feel like they were saying Stalker 2 is playable to the public for the first time at this year's Gamescom. And I was thinking, hang on a sec, I played that last year. So unless I'm misremembering, it was another game. But yeah, when I played it last year, it was very, very, very rough. It was extremely rough. The frame rate was all over the place. The light, there was lighting issues, LOD issues, from zooming in, all kinds of strange issues with the build. And I thought, this is not a good way to present a game. You to press an event, and this is the first time you're introducing the game to people, and it was incredibly rough. And I was like, and this is coming out this year at the time. And I was thinking they absolutely need to delay this and give it more time in the oven and get it polished up. Because one of the things I do remember from being a kid, right? Stalker 1, when Stalker 1 came out, it was kind of like a similar sort of discourse about how buggy it was. And it was legendarily buggy to the point where like modders had to fix the game. And I think even now there's a mod pack that is recommended to download before you play it, and I think they fixed a lot of those issues now over time. But this is a game that is sort of been developed under extreme duress for various reasons. So like, even before you start talking about the war in Ukraine and having to relocate half the studio to Prague, and literally losing developers to the war effort.
Mm-hmm.
Even before you talk about all that kind of stuff, there was also, before COVID, which was also a big issue for the studio, COVID as well. And before COVID, there was also, the game was cancelled. So Stalker 2 was originally announced back in 2010, I think 2011, something like that. Just after the most recent Stalker game had come out, which I think don't think it was Call of Pripyat. It was the other one. I think Call of Pripyat was the second one. I can't remember off the top of my head. But there was 3 Stalker games before then. One was a prequel, one was sort of a sequel, but they all took place in the same map, I think, essentially. And they were kind of like standalone expandalones, I suppose you could call them in some degree. But but this game has seen a huge amount of difficulty to get out the door. The game was cancelled before COVID. The game was cancelled. They ran out of money, and the studio was actually closed down. You know, and then at some point I think this was before COVID, they actually secured some more funding and revived the game, revived the studio, and rebuilt everything somehow. And then COVID hit, and then the invasion happened. So it was like this game had everything working against it, and also they had a huge studio fire in Prague as well, which fried all of their servers and their builds and stuff like that. So they have really had a tough struggle to get this game to where it is, and it's a testament to the studio's grit, but also like, you know, the support they've received from their backers and also Microsoft in actually seeing this project through to completion, because it was fucking worth it. This game is fantastic. And I think it's like, I only played 2 hours of it, 3 hours of it, something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head. But it was about 3 hours. And I had an interview in the middle. It was one of the most engrossing gaming experience I've had probably since Elden Ring. You know, and when I say it like a lot, the most engrossing game I've played in a long time, you know, there's been so many really great games over the last few years, you know, talking about games like Elden Ring. For me, this was that kind of game on that kind of level where it's like, oh my God, I can't believe what I'm seeing. I can't believe how this sounds, how this feels, how this looks. The lighting, the mood, the music, the soundtrack was fucking amazing. Like these sort of like bleak post-rock tones, you know, absolutely fantastic atmospherics, like just supreme, sublime, absolutely right up my alley. And then on top of it, you've got this sort of really intriguing gameplay loop. Now, I hadn't played the original, well, I had played the original Stalker, but when I played it when I was younger, I didn't get it. I was like, what is this game? It feels janky. And it was janky, the first game. Let's be real. Or at least it felt janky because I didn't get it, because the progression layer is it was unfamiliar to me at the time. So there is a progression layer in almost an RPG style fashion. And Pico Trek in chat says, am I breaking embargo? No, I'm not breaking embargo, because the embargo lifted last week on the preview, my friend. So there's no embargo to be broken here. You can read my full preview up on Windows Central right now. But so like the progression layer in Stalker is like, you don't grind, you don't get XP. So it still has that kind of, that shooter DNA where it's like, I've got a gun, I can get headshots, that kind of thing, right? But your guns at the start of the game will be terrible. And they'll sway, they'll jam. And it kind of reminded me of Far Cry 2. And it kind of made me realize, oh, Far Cry 2 was probably very inspired by Stalker back in the day. And once I played Stalker 2, that made me get Stalker 1. And I'd gone back and started playing Stalker 1 and having a much better time with it, because now I understood what the game wanted me. It wants you to explore. It wants you to scavenge. It wants you to find those hidden guns, those attachments which boost your accuracy, that make firefights easier and all that kind of stuff. The game gives you tons of tools to overcome its difficulty. And that's something that is a point I really want to sort of emphasize here, that it is designed to be difficult. It does have difficulty settings, though. There is going to be an easy mode, which is just sort of like, if you want to play it like a normal shooter and, you know, go through it and experience the story, then you play it on story mode. But the normal difficulty, the way they want you to play it ultimately, is a sort of more hardcore experience where it's tactical with, you know, dynamic cover mechanics, with leaning, stealth mechanics, very heavy stealth mechanics, improved stealth mechanics as well. There's like execution now for using the knife, execution animation, which wasn't in the original, and also enemies like, yeah, I tried stealthing in the original Stalker, and it's like the enemies like they will hear everything. You know, the slightest footstep, even if you're moving super slow, they'll still seem to hear you. But it does feel like they've gone for a little more traditional style stealth now, to some degree. But I don't think you can just be a super ninja. But then there might be artifacts and equipment that I haven't found that let you be more stealthy, because that's again a lot of your progression and your gameplay. Your gameplay customization comes from the items you get, because in Stalker, the game revolves around the Chernobyl exclusion zone, right? The real life Chernobyl exclusion zone, which exists in real life. And the idea is that there was a second nuclear meltdown, which broke the fabric of reality, and now there's mutants and artifacts and weird energy sprouting out the ground, and the fabric of our dimensions, as between our dimension and other dimensions, seems to have warped, and there's all kinds of weird mutants and radioactive monsters walking around now, right? So the whole area is quarantined by the military, just like in real life. But mercenaries and bandits and all kinds of shady organizations, they still try to get into the zone because they want to get these radioactive artifacts. Like there are these chunks of minerals which have become irradiated, and now they give you special properties like superhuman strength or superhuman healing, and you can equip those, sort of like Elden Ring talismans almost, to customize your playstyle on top of all the hardcore shooting aspects, like equipping silencers, bandoliers, or upgrading your guns and all that kind of stuff. So that's where the progression comes from, is getting those artifacts. And but there's also, like, on top of that, there's almost this old school Bethesda style RPG system where you've got like dialogue, choice and consequences, side quests, NPCs giving you hints about where to find weapon caches, all that kind of stuff. It's just relentlessly immersive, It's super, super immersive. And there's also these like there's these settlements that are built up for stalkers who, they're there for whatever reason. Maybe they're helping a scientist out. Maybe they're helping a foreign government get stuff out of the zone. Or maybe they're just in it for themselves and they want to get artifacts to sell on the black market. There's like these little neutral settlements that are built up, and also like a currency where people trade in artifacts and trading gear and ammo and food and stuff like that, and supplies, while trying to survive in this absolutely horrible place. And there's also this intriguing, main story quest on top of it, where it's like you're helping a scientist to extract some of the weird energy into this machine, and he gets betrayed, and all the scientists in the outposts have been killed by someone or something, and you're kind of left for dead, right? And then you sort of like resolve to, and then you end up getting stuck in the zone because the military's quarantining you inside there. So then you have to sort of figure out how to get out of the zone, and also B, get revenge, And then there's all these side quests on top of it, and the demo it felt like there was so much to do in such a small space. Everything's handcrafted, no copy and paste. All the weapon locations are handcrafted. The weapons are handcrafted. There's no procedural randomized weapon affixes like in Starfield, where it's like, oh, I've got a legendary, and then you look at the affixes and they're all garbage. It's all sort of very deliberate and hand designed, this experience, and it gripped me, gripped me in a way that I haven't been gripped since Elden Ring, and those kind of games. I'm super immersed, and it's a game I can't stop thinking about it. So I started playing Stalker 1, and putting up with all its old school shortcomings and stuff. And Illegal Dad in chat says the first Stalker is too dated. You should just play Call of Pripyat. It's a massive improvement. Yeah, for sure. Like you can see how old Stalker 1 is, but I was so immersed in Stalker 2 that I still wanted to play Stalker 1. Because it was just like, even though you can feel how old it is, it's like it's Stalker. It's just amazing. So I'm so sucked into it now. I'm so invested in it, and I this is a franchise that, for whatever reason, completely passed me by when it first rolled around. So I'm really excited that having this opportunity, and I think a lot of people who were disappointed by aspects of Starfield will probably find their more joy in Stalker from that angle potentially. The sort of like the density of Stalker 2 is a huge benefit to the game because you're always on foot. There's no fast travel, there's no cars, so you're always on foot. But in that aspect of the game, it means every sort of inch of the map has to be handcrafted so you don't get bored. The points of interest have to be handcrafted, and like as you're moving through an area, the things that you're doing on the way to where you want to go, they have to be meaningful, right? And I really got a sense of that. That was like, oh, this is like, yeah, I'm on foot, but there's still so much to do and so much to see in what feels like and comparatively smaller space. And then you look at the map and zoom out, and it's like, oh, actually, this map is huge.
So it's kind of giving you the Fallout vibe in a way, right?
Almost, but it's very much. It's still like that sort of slow, methodical, tactical shooter as well. Like whereas like Fallout, you can
how fast do you die when you get shot?
Very,
you get
very
shot
fast.
and it's like boom. So if you do die, is it like you're dead, the game's over, start over again, or is there checkpoints to save points and stuff where you could just?
It's more like it's more like a Bethesda game in that context. Like you can quick save it at any time. So like, but you do like when you're starting out. I say level 1, but there's no levels in it. But when you're starting out, your gear sucks. You don't have any artifacts. So yeah, you get shot. You're gonna die very quickly. So you have to approach combat scenarios very, very thoughtfully. It's like, okay, I'm gonna stealth kill this guy, which is probably gonna alert everyone maybe. And I'll have at least taken that guy out, and then I'm going to really sort of hunker down here and, abuse the terrain to avoid getting shot. And when you get shot, you start bleeding, so you have to use bandages. So you have to make sure you've got bandages if you're going to start a firefight. And also like when you lose health, you want to use a med kit or morphine and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, like Illegal Dad says, you've got to do a lot of scum saving Stalker. Autosave doesn't happen that much. But I did notice when I was playing Stalker this time, when you do go towards a point of interest, there is an autosave that triggers. So there are definitely some sort of modern quality of life improvements that are baked into this, at least on normal difficulty. But you can just save at any time. Like if you're playing on PC, just hit F5 at any time, before you go in. But when you do, you feel vulnerable, and it's a good kind of vulnerable. It's a fair kind of vulnerable, It's like, yeah, you die very quickly, but so do your enemies, If you pop off those headshots correctly, or you're patient with your stealth kills, you will overcome it. But it was just fantastic, man. If the whole game is at the quality level that I experienced in the preview, this could be like, up there with Elden Ring for me as one of my top games of the gen so far.
Well, I'm also curious how people who never played a Stalker game are going to take to it, right? Because Stalker's always kind of been that franchise that has, I don't know, kind of been on the outskirts of
the periphery.
Yeah, right. Where I know about it, but I didn't play it. And Stalker 2 has been heavily kind of associated with the Xbox. I mean, clearly, I'm not saying people on PC aren't going to play it. I mean, there's going to be a huge PC community with all the mods and stuff you're going to be able to do, but Microsoft has...
Stalker's mostly a PC franchise.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's mostly...
You want to be more concerned about people playing it on Xbox.
But I'm saying, like, Microsoft is also... they've shown the game off a lot. And it's kind of been associated with Xbox in a lot of ways. So we have a super chat here from Mr. Dark, who says, Jez, do you think Stalker 2 will be too hardcore for console players or reviewers who are not used to this type of game, as Stalker is not Call of Duty? And I sort of wonder, because watching the trailers that we've seen over the course of time at Xbox shows, the game looks like unbelievably good, right? The graphics and everything, and it's
The
this
visuals are
hardcore
insane.
shooter, but I wonder how many people are gonna be who haven't heard of Stalker 2 are gonna be like, yeah, I hope this, like Call of Duty, where you just get in, run around, kill people, and have a good time, which is not that. So
No. I actually, when I first went in, I tried to play it like Call of Duty. And I was just like, I'm going to run over, like, or Far Cry or something like that. And I was just like, I'm going to run over here. I actually tried, muscle memory tried to do a dashing slide, like in Call of Duty. Muscle memory tried to do that because, the guns kind of have that sort of Call of Duty level of, stylized realism, I guess, where everything feels really tactile. So I did go into Call of Duty brain, but this is absolutely the wrong way to play it. You can't play it like that. You have to be careful and thoughtful about when you're going to reveal your position because the bullets will come flying in and you will die.
Will that affect, do you think, reviews? Like Mr. Dark kind of insinuated.
I don't know. I will say that in the preview event, I did overhear some media people or content creators complaining how hard it was.
But I thought people love hard stuff, if judging from the From Software games. Like, isn't that like supposed to be a badge of honor?
Well, some people love it, some people don't. But that's the thing. We only had access to the normal mode in the preview, because the devs wanted us to feel what their vision was for the game.
So there's even like a harder mode and an easier mode. Do you think?
There is a harder mode and an easier mode, and they're named after the difficulty modes in the original Stalker. And the harder mode is kind of like Ranger Hardcore mode from Metro, where it doesn't just pull back.
That's the other thing.
It pulls back the UI. You can't. You have to look at how many bullets you've got.
A lot of people think Stalker's gonna be just like the Metro games, which I love to death, but that's not gonna be the case, right?
Say what? Say that again.
A lot of people also think that it's going to kind of play just like the Metro games.
No,
they're similar. They look similar.
It does not play like Metro. Not really. I think in Metro you've got a lot. You've got a lot more leeway, I think, in Metro, because you are kind of like a badass, especially in the later Metro games, and you are sort of Spartan. You've got the gear and all that kind of stuff. So the time to kill in Metro, I think, is longer, at least, than the initial stages of Stalker 2. But you got to remember, I was playing like from the start of Stalker 2. So as you progress through the game, you get better gear, you get better armor, weapons, and artifacts. You will start to feel more powerful. It's that Elden Ring kind of style. Oh god, like when you a level 1 dude in Elden Ring, you're pathetic. You're absolutely pathetic. But then by the end, you're a god slayer, right? Kind of feels like that's the kind of progression you can kind of expect from Stalker 2. But I wouldn't be surprised if the difficulty and the expectations the game puts on you could obscure some of the reviews, maybe, if people don't get it. But if you play the game like how it wants you to play it, which is slow, methodical, explorative, inquisitive, and curious, like, oh, what's in this cave? It could be that the cave's really fucking dangerous and get you killed, but it could also be like, oh, there's a stalker's corpse in here and he's got an absolutely badass machine gun or something like that, right? So there's that risk and reward kind of element. But I think I want to believe that most game journalists will get what they're going for here. And there were some people in the preview who were like journalists who were hardcore Stalker fans. There was a lass from the German outlet GameStar, and she was like this massive Stalker fan, and she was absolutely loving it. Like, and you could tell like this is a game they've made for the fans of Stalker. It feels like the game that they laser focused on what Stalker fans want out of it. And the I will say the Stalker fans at the event, who are established existing fans, they all loved it. So, and it also converted me into a Stalker fan as someone who hadn't played the original. So I think like if you are someone who enjoys a challenge and or even if you're not someone who enjoys a challenge, you can still play on story mode, because it does have a really compelling story as well. Like, high quality voice acting, a lot of ambience with the NPCs, a lot of Radiant quests, but also like more interesting side quests. There's sort of Radiant quests where it's like, oh, just go here and kill 2 bandits or whatever, and I'll give you a reward. But there's also like deeper side quests where it's like, it ends with a sort of choice and consequence kind of situation, and then a more compelling reward, right? But there's also these dynamic Radiant Skyrim style quests where it can just reward you some currency and stuff like that. I think I'm gonna fucking live in this world, man.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
Also, I will say as well, someone asked about performance. I did not see any traversal stuttering in the build I played. I can't remember what the specs of the PC. I think it was an RTX 4080 PC I was on. Can't remember exactly what the CPU or the RAM was, but there was no traversal stuttering. The engine was sublime. I had one crash when it was related to I'd reported the crash as well, but it was related to me switching from keyboard to controller and then switching back too rapidly, because I was testing how it feels with the controller, right? Because there was controllers on a keyboard and mouse. I played it mostly with mouse and keyboard. It just felt I don't know. It felt nicer to me to play that kind of game with a mouse and keyboard, but but I also wanted to try the controller as well, and I triggered a crash by moving between the two peripherals too quickly.
Did they talk about the Xbox console version, Series X or Series S?
Yeah, so this was a really interesting point they made. Was Series X is 60 frames per second generally. They said that it will dip sometimes to about 55, and they said in cutscenes, because they have these cinematic in-engine cutscenes where there's a lot of VFX going on. They said they do unlock the frame rates in those situations to, have more VFX in there. But like all the times you're controlling the character, it should be around 60 frames.
That's good.
But like if there's like a crazy cutscene going on with tons of particles and shit, you can expect a bigger drop there. But the interesting thing was what they talked about the Series S, because I didn't realize this when I was doing the interview, but I spoke to the CEO of GSC Gamewell. GSC Gamewell. I didn't realize that I was talking to the CEO at the time. I misheard, or it was also rapid and stuff going on. So, and I remember thinking in the interview, oh, this guy's really confident, because sometimes when you talk to devs, you can kind of tell they're worried about saying something they're not supposed to say. But this guy was like, I'll just say anything I want, right? So when I asked him about Series S performance, he was like pretty candid about the fact that when they first got their dev kits, they were scared it wasn't going to be possible with the Series S. And they were like, oh God, not enough RAM kind of thing, right? But then, as they developed the game more and got more expertise in the team, and also worked with Microsoft, to explore the Series S more, they were like, oh, actually, this is not only possible, but this is actually really good, because now it's optimized. It's now optimized our PC build, So the Series S version on launch runs at 30 frames, but they did say that it mostly runs at 60 frames right now, but there's on Series S as well in development builds, but there's a little bit more optimization work they need to do to get it to a sort of more consistent 60 frames. So they've locked it at 30 for now, but there should be a post-launch update which brings the Series S version to 60 frames as well, which I think is fantastic. So
cool.
yeah, I think devs, more and more devs are getting more out of the Series S now, and I don't know if it's because of the Steam Deck in part, like wanting to make sure you've got a low PC ceiling as possible, so you can have a good experience on the Steam Deck. Because I don't know if you saw, Rand, but Diablo 4 is like really blowing up on Steam because of the Steam Deck. I don't know if you've seen this. Like,
I didn't see that. No.
So it's like one of the most played Steam Deck games because it's so well optimized. It's one of the few sort of AAA modern games that runs pretty much flawlessly on the Steam Deck. So it's become like a go-to game for Steam Deck players. So I think more and more devs are thinking like, oh, maybe we should try and target, lower specs. And I think that's benefiting the Series S to some degree. And the Series S optimization is also benefiting people with weaker PCs or people who want to play on the Steam Deck, or even like more powerful stuff like the ROG Ally. So yeah, and JB1521 says he said the Series S can run any game if the devs are able to do it, and he did caveat that saying like not every dev has access to Xbox's advanced technology group or the budget or the time to optimize for that stuff. If you've developed a game with PS5 or Xbox Series X as your baseline, it's more expensive to backport it then to the Series S, because it's like, oh, we've got to posthumously optimize down for this system. But if you do build the game with the Series S in mind, or the Steam Deck, or a low spec in mind from the outset, then yeah, of course the Series S can run it. And then you can put your more potent, more detailed effects for the PS5 and the Xbox Series X and your RTX 4090 doorstop like Rand has on top of the lower end version. So I do think the Series S is benefiting more as the gen goes on. But yeah, man, like, just to wrap it up, Stalker 2 was just fucking amazing. My kind of game, really, really my kind of game. And I kind of felt like it was giving me something that I really wanted out of Starfield but didn't get. Like, I love Starfield for what it is, but I do really feel that genuine criticism of POI is not interesting, too much, lack of density, and like Shattered Space feels like it was a reaction to not having enough density, and they did add a bunch of new POIs and things like that. And I think as Starfield develops more into the future, building up the density of the game with more interesting points of interest and more handcrafted stuff, I think that is in Starfield's future. But it feels like Stalker 2 is giving me that now, and I wouldn't be surprised if like Bethesda really rethinks that as they're developing Elder Scrolls 6. So this kind of felt like this is tiding me over in the way for Fallout 5 in a way, but it really is its own beast. You can't really come in thinking like, oh, this is a Bethesda game, even though it does have sort of like, you can tell there's some sort of like Morrowindy kind of inspiration when it comes to the way quests work. Like I talk to an NPC, zooms in, I got a dialogue tree, I can barter with him, and he can give me a side quest, and comes with a reward, and oh, there's a choice and consequence in this side quest. I can kill all the NPCs, I can negotiate with the NPCs, I can also join the NPCs and be an asshole and kill the guy who was going to give me the reward and just take the reward off his body. So there is that kind of Bethesda-y element to it, I think, is the best comparison. Or it's more like an old school RPG tradition, right? It's not just Bethesda that did that. Like Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 did that back in the day. And there is that aspect to it, but don't go in thinking like it's just going to be a walk in the park like Fallout 3 probably is, like with the VAT auto targeting. The combat is demanding, and the exploration and survival elements are demanding if you play on normal. But again, there's easy mode. So if you just want the atmosphere, the amazing atmosphere and the story, just play on easy mode, and I think you'll have a blast too. I'm really excited about this game, man. I haven't been this excited about a game in a long fucking time since Elden Ring,
Right.
And like coming up, do you remember I went back and played Dark Souls specifically because I was hyped about Elden Ring? It's a similar situation here, like playing Stalker 1 because I'm hyped about Stalker 2. It's the same thing, and that hasn't happened to me since Elden Ring, so I'm really excited.
Good old Collinwood has a question. He says, Jez, what have you heard about Stalker 2's exclusivity? Originally it was a 3-month exclusivity, but I've heard rumors of a longer time.
Honestly, I have no idea. I didn't ask about exclusivity, really. I would not be surprised because the game obviously got a huge delay, and I would expect that Microsoft funded some of that delay, and also Microsoft invested a lot in the technology there. I would not be surprised if Microsoft, as part of that, negotiated a longer-term exclusivity agreement, but I honestly don't know. I haven't asked.
Yeah.
I think it could work really well for them if they do keep a longer term exclusivity deal in play, because Stalker is very popular in Europe, and I think if you are someone who, it's a shame that the 60 FPS isn't there for launch, because I think the Xbox Series S at 60 FPS Stalker 2 could have been a more of a system seller than it is at 30 frames. Because I think for a lot of people it would be like, oh, this is the cheapest way to get access to this game, because it's still quite a demanding game. You know, it looks phenomenal in the game when you're playing it. But I honestly don't know if there's a longer deal. But I suppose we'll wait and see, right?
Yeah, indeed.
They did say that as the team that worked on the initial sort of content for the game, they've already moved on. That part of the team has finished their work on the base game. They've moved on to working on the 2 expansions that they've got planned for it. And also they're going to be doing post-launch updates to the game, adding 3 new features and things like that. So like there's already a lot of work going into the next stage of the Xbox development, which makes me wonder, like, is stuff like that pushing back the PlayStation version? I suppose we'll see. But I do know that GSC is obviously very grateful to Xbox, given all the funding they've been given by Xbox and all the issues they've had to deal with on that front. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, so it's funny. I saw this thing about Banjo, because Banjo-Kazooie is coming to the Switch, so Banjo isn't been in the news, and people are debating about, like, you see Paris out there being like, "Give me Banjo, where's my Banjo game?" and whatnot, right? And then it came out that there was a rumor from a YouTuber who went to a Microsoft Flight Sim event that when talking about future games, what people would like to see, apparently Aaron Greenberg said that nobody cares about Banjo, and the YouTuber basically couldn't tell if it said it sarcastically as a joke or if he meant it straight. So now there's like a huge discussion about, what is Microsoft doing? Do you have any insight of any of this, Jez, about the Banjo conspiracy at all?
I don't really have a ton of insight. Like, I spoke to someone and they were like, that doesn't sound like Greenberg because he actually likes Banjo.
So he's a Banjo. So Greenberg's a Banjo bro, is what you're saying.
Yeah, at least this is what this person said to me. And I was kind of like, I saw a lot of outlets reporting on this, and I was just like, why didn't you just, obviously I haven't been around, so I haven't been able to sort of investigate this in any sort of depth. But I was just kind of like, why didn't you just reach out to Microsoft for comment? Or, why didn't someone just tweet Aaron and ask him directly? And if this was said to a big audience, why aren't there more than one witness? Why didn't the YouTuber get corroborating witness before he made a claim that could potentially get him blacklisted? Because if Aaron didn't say that, or he did say it but it was taken out of context, especially in an off the record kind of way or a jokey kind of way, then this YouTuber is going to sort of get himself blacklisted potentially for causing that outrage wave. But if you'd think if there was a live audience, he could have got someone at least to corroborate that he said it. So I'm not saying he didn't say it. Obviously, I wasn't there and I don't know. But even if he did say it or didn't say it, whatever, I mean, it's pretty evident that I would say Microsoft believes that no one cares about Banjo from their actions. If even if Aaron is a fan of Banjo or not, it doesn't absolve Microsoft from the fact that they've done nothing with that IP. They've done nothing with that IP, and I do think there's something there, man. I mean, the fact that Twitter crashed when they announced Banjo for Smash Brothers is kind of suggests to me that the character has legs.
but that's Smash though, and that was a big surprise, Banjo to be in Smash. I guess the question you have to ask, if they announced a new Banjo game, would the internet crash? I don't think so. You know what I mean? I think it's that hype of, there hasn't been a Banjo in one of these Smash Brothers games, right? And it's like it was kind of always that unicorn, something that you were like hoping could happen, but we're never sure it could because Microsoft owned it and they weren't really playing nice with anybody for a long time. And then suddenly, okay, Xbox and Nintendo are kind of working together a little bit. And then here's the trailer, and people freak the fuck out because it's Banjo and it's Smash. And I do remember the internet kind of like dying because of it. But I can't imagine Microsoft at like a summer showcase announcing a Banjo game and the internet dying, because I don't really think, outside of the Banjo Bros, I sort of agree with Aaron. Like, I always say I want my Banjo
If he
Bros.
said it, if
If he
allegedly said it.
allegedly said it, which we don't know, and I know there's plenty of Banjo Bros that watch this show, and I hope you do get your Banjo game at some point. And maybe, we're in the people are also kind of talking about Banjo because of what Astrobot did for PlayStation, and they see like Xbox kind of like missing a beat and being like, "What are you doing? The pass right there." Like, make Banjo and kind of have it be a tour through Xbox's legacy. You could do something like that. And with Xbox's whole multi-platform approach, yeah, maybe Banjo wouldn't do so well on Xbox, but if you made a Banjo game and you put it on PC and Xbox Game Pass on the console, you could also release it on Switch and probably would sell very well on the Switch. So it's like the idea of it maybe not, okay, we're worried about making a Banjo game because it's going to cost this amount of money. We really don't think there's that much of an audience on the Xbox side or the PC side, but, we're releasing games in more places now. So we could release a Switch version or a Switch 2 version where presumably, a lot of Switch fans or a lot of Nintendo fans would purchase. So I don't really necessarily think it's even like, oh, it's something that we would make for the fans and we're going to lose money on it, because I think you'd eventually make money on it. But I don't know, with Rare not being interested in making the game, I think that's a big problem, because then you're relying on studios to pitch a vision to you that you're waiting on like studios to be like, all right, we got a pitch for this game, we got a pitch for that, and maybe none of the pitches they've seen have been interesting enough or good enough, and they're like, does Banjo really have a place in the future? I don't know. I sort of agree with Aaron if he allegedly said that, but
the discourse around third-person platformers is kind of your 3D platformer, sorry, it's kind of shifted in the wake of Astrobot, right? But like, according to Sakana, Astrobot, if I remember correctly, Astrobot didn't even hit the top 20 PlayStation games list, right?
I mean, do you expect it to? A month after release? I mean, I don't expect it to.
For all the hype on social media, you would have thought it would have chart.
Yeah, but I mean, but you're looking at it from the Astrobot came out a month and like a week ago. Why would it be charting a month later? It's a game that you play.
But it never charted, did it?
I don't know. You'd have to go look. You'd have to go look. I think it did when it first came out. You'd have to look at those charts. But yeah, the most recent one that came out, it's not there. But then I don't expect it to be there because it's a 15-hour game or 10-hour game if you don't search for anything. And once you're done with it, you're done with it. So why would it show up a month later? And the PlayStation list is pretty much the same as the Xbox list. It's Fortnite, Call of Duty, sports games, games as a service that everybody on Twitter and everywhere says they hate, but they're always the most played games on both these platforms. You know what I mean?
I'm trying to check if it ever actually charted. Automata said it hit the top 15. So, oh yeah, I think it hit 15 and then did it hit 15 and then go out? I don't know. But the point being is like, Astrobot, if there was ever like a chance for a game to sort of a 3D platformer to sort of prove that the genre had relevance in today's times, it probably would have been Astrobot.
I mean, outside of Mario.
Hype. Yeah, outside of Mario. Mario doesn't count, does it? The Nintendo games never count. They're in a sort of league of their own. But and that's kind of one of the issues, really, is that you sort of you're going to be infinitely compared to Mario when it comes to this shit. But I think like it sort of proves that that would have been a game that would have proved if there is a modern audience for this, because it had a ton of hype, it had great reviews, it's probably going to win Game of the Year, and also it had all the nostalgia hooks in and all that kind of stuff, right? And you would have thought that, okay, so it did chart on the 23rd of September at 15, up from 34, and then it vanished out of the chart, never to be seen again. Which
what,
like you said,
what was the name of the game? You sure it wasn't Astro's Playroom?
Nope,
that you're looking
Astrobot.
at? Okay, so
Astrobot.
what was his positioning the week it released though?
The week it released, it hit 34,
That seems odd.
and then
unless like it was a
according to Sakana in the United States, it might have done better in Japan, maybe. But according to Matt Piscatella and Sakana's US player engagement tracker, Astrobot went up from position 34 in its release week up to 15 the following week, and then the next week it was gone.
Well,
replaced by Marvel's Spider-Man 2, which was up from position 17.
When you're talking about like platformers, you got to mention It Takes Two recently announced. I think they sold 20 million copies.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, will Astrobot have a long tail? And maybe it will be. Maybe it will do.
Well, I mean,
20
million copies is incredibly impressive. I mean, that's
Well, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, if you could be like, hey, Banjo's going to even sell half those numbers alongside whatever it does for Game Pass, I feel like you greenlit that project.
I think the thing about It Takes Two as well was that it took two. So you buy, and I know there was the whole thing where, wasn't it like
if you buy
if you got one copy, you play with your friend.
Yeah, you give it to your friend. Yeah.
So are they counting that double there in those sales figures?
I don't know.
But I don't know. But
I mean, it did win Game of the Year. So,
but even if, say for example, even if they were counting those extra codes as an extra sale or extra user or whatever, even if it was 10 million, that's still monstrously impressive for a non-Mario 3D platformer. So I think between It Takes Two and Astrobot, it proves that there is a path forward to making money on a game like Banjo. And you want to think like, if you put it on Nintendo Switch, it will probably blow the fuck up because that's where the audience is. You could put Banjo on Switch and you could put it on Xbox, and you could also have a 2-player element to it because it's Banjo and Kazooie, right? Maybe you could have a player 2 control Kazooie in some fashion. Maybe he jumps around and throws banjos at someone. I don't know. But I think there is potential for that. I used to think no, but I've sort of come around to the opposite opinion now, where I think actually, clearly, between Astrobot and It Takes Two and games like that, I think clearly there would be a path forward for that if they were willing to do it. But then you sort of run into a variety of problems, like who would develop it? Does Microsoft have a developer to develop it? And you could say, well, what about your boys, Toys for Bob, or partner up with Toys for Bob on it, or partner up with, Double Fine wouldn't make it because I think they want to make their own stuff.
Yeah, Double Fine said they're not interested in working on other people's stuff. So
but there probably is a road to success for that game, whether it's a Switch co-launch or something like that. I think there is a road to success for that game, and I think the fans deserve it.
How about we get a Microsoft Nintendo collab where Nintendo makes it? Nintendo makes the Banjo game, and then they that obviously wouldn't happen, but we'll see.
I don't think Nintendo would do it.
We'll see if a Banjo ever comes out. I don't know who would make it. Platonic, like you said, Toys for Bob would have been like the one, but they're probably going to do Spyro 4, and who knows if they work with Xbox again, because the whole point for them was to go independent. And even if they did say work with Xbox again and like, oh, let's do Banjo, I mean, what are you looking at, 2030 at that point? I mean, because I don't know how soon Spyro 4 is going to come. You're probably still a couple years away for that game, and then they got to start working on another game, so you're still looking like far away. So I know the Banjo fans are constantly like waiting in that perpetual waiting, like, all right, this year, every year someone always predicts it'll be this year, and then they get disappointed because it's not. So we'll see what happens.
I mean, there's also like Nick in chat says you could get Sumo, you could get Platonic.
Sure.
There is a remake of Yooka-Laylee coming around the corner called Yooka Replay Lee.
Did that already come out?
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's not out yet. But they've revamped, overhauled the game to I think bring it closer in line with what Banjo fans expected of that. Because ukulele wasn't spectacularly well received.
Its reviews were pretty awful.
Yeah, like even like hardcore fans weren't huge fans of it, but it does sound like they've worked hard to address some of this feedback here. But I don't know. I would love to see Banjo come back, if for no reason other than seeing the fans so happy about
Yeah,
it.
I mean,
Because there is so much passion for that game amongst a certain age group. I think a certain cohort of gamers. I think
look,
I was too old, slightly too old, maybe, or slightly already too cynical to enjoy it. But I'd love to see the celebration from like Nintendo fans or old school Rare fans if they announced that was coming to PC, Switch, and Xbox. I think that would be fantastic.
hey, if I won't be happy for them until I get my fucking Splinter Cell game, okay? So I'm gonna be sitting here with like
You'll get your Splinter
arms.
Cell, bro.
No, you never know because
like 10 cents.
no, the Splinter Cell game, who knows? They might end up canceling that because I have a feeling Ubisoft's gonna go through layoffs. I mean, it seems like every week there's more layoff stuff.
Buddy.
Like, look at it, Riot's laying off people. Bandai Namco's basically told 200 people to go and what was the whole thing? Like they basically told 200 people to
sit in a room
and hope, and they were hoping that they would quit. Dotnod is like restructuring.
That's because of weird. Yeah, it's because of some weird Japanese employment laws. They do that. I think I read.
So it's like, okay, so Bandai is like canceling games and being like, go sit in this room and we hope you quit. The developer behind Zao, I think they just posted on Twitter that they had to basically tell their employees like,
all their employees,
yeah, because and they're on Twitter, being like, hey, would you, fund our next game, right? Dotnod, because of low sales of Jusant and Banishers of Ghost of New Eden, basically had to restructure, and it's like, so many problems everywhere, and it's like I think Ubisoft's going to be going through some of these layoffs here soon. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're like, well, is the Splinter Cell game actually going to do any good? And they'll be like, no, well then cut it, and then like the team gets cut and the game gets canceled. So I don't know, but yeah, we'll talk about what I played, Jez. Right, so I finished up Silent Hill 2, and it's so fucking good that I'm debating whether or not it's my favorite game of the year or number 2. Like, it's that good, and there's a part of me that thinks...
What's number 2?
Well, it was either Prince of Persia, it's either Prince of Persia's number 1 or Silent Hill 2.
That is large praise for Prince of Persia. Like, you really love that.
Well, because I also just went back and played the DLC of Prince of Persia, which Special Nick still hasn't gone and done. He hasn't finished it yet, because...
Special Nick in the chat.
I know I DM'd him. I'm like, I'm disappointed in you because there was a couple people that were talking really highly about Prince of Persia, and I was one of them. And I went and looked at Nick's thing, and Nick hadn't even beaten the DLC yet. And I'm like, what are you doing, Nick? I thought you loved this stuff. And he was giving me the whole runaround.
Yo,
like,
what are you doing?
He was like, oh, I'm playing Rocket League and I'm playing Marvel. And I'm like, dude, the fucking DLC is like 4 hours long. Like, get off of your ass, put down those other games, and play the game of the year. So replaying this DLC, which is a lot harder than the main game, a lot harder. Like, they made this for the fans that wanted it to be harder. Combat's more difficult mainly because you don't have a lot of health and you don't have a lot of healing properties, and the platforming is more difficult. But it just reinforced how much I love this game, right? Playing through this again. But then, with Silent Hill 2, a game that probably, like, the original is probably in my top 10 games of all time. I had never played a game like that. Talk about like psychological horror. And I was like, Bloober Team, they're going to fuck it up, right? Because the medium wasn't very good. And I hated Layers of Fear. So I'm like, oh, you're going to let Bloober Team do it? Come on. They proved me completely wrong. They proved me completely wrong. Silent Hill 2 is so good that sometimes I sit there and I think, man, this might be better. Or at least remaking Silent Hill 2 might have been a more difficult proposition than remaking the Resident Evil games. because like the Resident Evil games, as good as they are, and they are amazing, you know, it's definitely just kind of run of the mill horror, right? It's just like, hey, here's some zombies. You have a low amount of supplies. You know, get through it all, right? With some interesting puzzles, although a little bit on the easier side. And it kind of also is building off of the nostalgia you have of the franchise, right? That has been around forever. I mean, it's not like the franchise went away. You know, they were still making Resident Evil 5, and Resident Evil 6, and Resident Evil 7, and all. So it was like the franchise was still here, and it's like, all right, we're gonna remake these ones from the, you know, PS1 era or whatever, and they were really good. But I think it's more difficult to do psychological horror, where it's about, you know, it's like the subtleties, because there are definitely things here, like bosses you fight or things that happen, that you have to be paying attention to because of what they mean to each of the characters. Like, because, you know, that game is very, you know, I mean, you played Silent Hill 2, so you know it's you know, it's playing on your guilt and your fears and like your things that you've done, and I think that's harder to portray in a game than just like, here's a zombie invasion, you know, kill him or whatever.
Yeah,
And
that sort of slams home what you were saying about worrying that Bloober Team would do, because Bloober Team, they've shown themselves to be really good at creating evocative atmospheres, but when it comes to handling, you know, those kind of nuances, they've in the past they've approached it with a blunt hammer, and sort of steamrolled through some of these kind of nuances. So I was worried that they wouldn't really get to some of those points, but I agree with you, man. Like, I've been playing Silent Hill 2
dude,
on my PC.
Atmosphere with
so
the
good.
fog. I mean, granted, like maybe you could say the combat's not like the greatest, like, but it doesn't really need to be, right? You have your cardboard, or not your cardboard. You have your wooden plank or your steel pipe that you can use for melee, and you can switch it between shooting and melee. Pretty simple. You eventually get like a handgun and a shotgun and a rifle, and as you're going around searching these places, these areas for, okay, you get to a spot and it's like a puzzle. It's like, oh, okay, you need to find all these things, and you're in the area and you go around, and it's usually in an apartment or in a hospital or in a hotel. So there's a lot of rooms to check out, and some rooms will be blocked off, but you check out, you find the things that you need to find to solve the puzzle, or that which usually gives you a key or something to open up a door somewhere. But, you know, you find your healing items, you find your extra ammo. There's, you know, there's quite a few jump scares here that got me that I wasn't expecting. That, like, I was literally sitting there and I was like, oh shit, you know, and just grotesque enemies, from like the nurses to, I don't even know what the hell some of them are even called. But then it's like the subtle nature of, you know, the characters being tortured. And I'll mention this, but I won't spoil it. There's like a boss fight you do that has to relate to Angela, which is one of the characters that you meet, one of the other people in Silent Hill.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And, okay, like I mentioned before, I hadn't played Silent Hill 2 in like 24 years. The original came out in 2001, so I haven't played it in 24 years. And I've forgotten the finer aspects of the game. Sure, I remember the broad strokes. Like, I remember, you know, like what's going on with James, right? And how that all ends up. But I had forgotten about Eddie, and I had forgotten about Angela. And so when you were fighting the battle with the boss in like Angela's section, I guess, I was like looking at the boss, and I was like, man, this is a disgusting looking boss. And then I realized what I was really looking at and how it pertained to Angela and everything. And I was like, oh, yeah. Oh, no. But it's so subtle that you may not get it. And I was reading some post about the game that didn't understand the significance of it, where it was like subtle enough in a way where even though she sort of acknowledged it and you could get a sense of what she was talking about from her comments, but I looked at the image of that boss and I was like, but it was, like I said, it was subtle enough that even some people who played it didn't fully understand what they were looking at or seeing.
Wasn't that it? That was in the original, though, I feel like.
It was, but I'm just saying, I didn't remember it from the original. until I got to that point, and then I looked, and then I heard her comment, and I looked at it again. I was like, oh yeah, oh.
Like, I don't know if I'm absolutely just fried, but I understood that when I was like 10 or 11.
Right, but I'm saying
I was like,
the point
shit.
I was trying to make is that it was subtle enough that even people posting about and talking about it didn't get what it was supposed to be, or what it's supposed to represent, or even what like the Pyramid Head is supposed to represent, or what's really going on with Mary and Maria and all that sort of stuff, because it's not really flat out told to you. It's something you need to kind of infer from yourself and all those sort of things. You know, because Silent Hill.
I often think Western devs in general struggle with this. Like, even like in Elden Ring and From Software games, a lot of their storytelling is done from inference. You know, and where it's like, you know, we're not gonna give it to you up front. We're gonna let you infer it, you know, from hints that we're giving you. And I think that works. I think that works a lot better in games, because you have that ability to infer things from physical objects around. Like, it works in movies to some degree. Of course it does. It doesn't work so well in books because you have to describe everything you're seeing. But in games it works extremely well, because you can have all these different kind of contextual objects which can infer kind of things, right? And Elden Ring does it really, really well. And it's got like there are literally like entire channels and books written dedicated to the analysis of From Software games lore, which oftentimes is a mind map of inferred sort of gray area storytelling, or, you know, where it's like there are like these subtle implications, and it hits you so much fucking harder than often like Western kind of stuff, where they really just want to give it to you and slap you in the face with it. But it hits you so much harder when you arrive at the conclusions you're meant to through some of your own sort of deduction.
Yeah.
And I think Japanese games often do that so much better than Western devs do. And that's why, like, I was worried that they wouldn't really nail that aspect of it. But Bloober, like, they have shown a great affinity for this aspect of storytelling. And like, there was a great conversation on Twitter between, I think it was the lead developer of the game, or one of the I can't remember exactly his name, so I apologize off the top of my head. But he was having a discussion with someone on Twitter, because someone had noticed that a lot of the shapes that you see in the game while you're moving through the world, the lighting, they have like almost human figures and human shapes in the shadows to sort of trick your eye and make you think like, oh shit, there's something there. And I'm like, oh, actually, no, it's just an object. And Bloober has been doing that since Layers of Fear. Like, if you go back and play the first Layers of Fear game, which I actually didn't hate that game like you say you did. I actually quite like Layers of Fear because of that stuff, because I did notice what they were going for there, because they did that a lot in Layers of Fear, where it was like, you know, you'd be moving around and you'd see some shadows, and it was like you'd think, oh shit, there's a creature there, and you turn around and it's like, oh, it's just a stack of books or something, you know. But it's casting a shadow. They do that shit on purpose, and they do kind of get it, and they do have like this. They are sort of developing this system of like building meticulous horror. Like, I think honestly, Rand, I think if you went back and played like the remake of Layers of Fear after playing Silent Hill 2, I think you might have a bit more appreciation for it.
I don't know. But Silent Hill 2, I think it took me like 18, 19 hours to get through. And, I mean, I love the game.
Bigger than the original?
What?
Is it bigger than the original?
Yeah, they've expanded on some things, right, on the original. I want to say that was, my playtime was around like 17, 18, 19 hours, give or take.
Right.
And I loved it. And even though it's hard to, I know it's weird to say like I love it, because the game is so depressing and sad. Like when you, like, it's not a happy-go-lucky type. Like Resident Evil is like, all right, I'm getting my kicks out of saving the Raccoon City and saving these people, and I'm killing all these zombies. So there's like excitement and entertainment, and the story is what the story is. But like Silent Hill 2 at its core is a depressing story. sad story, and it's I know it's weird to say like hell I love it, but hey, when it comes to if it comes to Xbox next in a year from now, I'll play it again. I'll go through it again. I like it that much. I'll play it again. I'll go through it one more time. Maybe try to get a different ending because there's a whole bunch of endings. In fact, there's some endings that they've included new from Bloober and stuff. But yeah, I mean, you're talking about a game that I had low expectations for, mainly based around the trailers they had put out previously and Bloober's, reputation. Because, man, those early trailers just were not good. And then there was like one trailer that came out that was like fantastic. I was like, well, wait a minute, now that's looking really good. And it was, the game was great. And right now I would probably slot it in, I don't know, 1 or 2. It's like for me right now, it's firmly Prince of Persia and Silent Hill 2, 1A, 1B, whatever way you want to put it. And I just played them both recently. Hellblade 2 would probably be 3. I think Astrobot would be 4. But all those games are like it's for me clearly Prince of Persia and Silent Hill 2 are ahead of the pack, right?
Yeah, I think
so.
Just to close off the Silent Hill 2 discussion, I think it'd be remiss to not mention how it performs on PC, because it is miserable on fucking PC.
Is it bad on PC?
I know you've been playing it on PlayStation.
Yeah, I played it on
right?
PlayStation.
I've been playing it on my very expensive 4080 PC, and it does not run well. It has this sort of like, I wasn't aware of how much of a problem this is until I tweeted about it. But they, traversal stutter, they call it, and apparently it's something to do with like, because it's something to do with the shader computation or something, because like when a developer's building the shaders for a PlayStation or Xbox game, they know exactly what kind of hardware to expect, but they have to do it more dynamically on PC because of all the different variety of configurations. So like when a game's been sort of developed with console in mind, oftentimes you get these issues with the shader cache where it's like, as you're moving through the game world, it'll fucking just freeze and stutter and stutter and stutter, and no matter how much you lower the settings, it won't help. It won't help. So I had this issue in Final Fantasy 16 as well. I blamed Unreal Engine initially, but like Final Fantasy 16 is not even on Unreal Engine. So like I had the same issue in Final Fantasy 16. Seems to be like a lot of AAA game ports seem to suffer from this issue. So I'm hoping to God that I kind of don't want to play more until they patch that issue, because it is spoiling it for me. Like even like if I'm walking slow, it'll still stutter, and there doesn't seem to be anything I can do about it.
Yeah.
If someone in the chat, knows how I can sort of solve this, because my system is not low spec. I got 4080 and 32 gigabytes of RAM and
Danny Passion
Intel,
Official says in Super Chat, are you talking about Lost Crown? Yes, indeed. I am talking about Prince of Persia Lost Crown, which came out in January and just released its DLC, I think, last month. And it's I love it. It's amazing. Metroidvania. But the other game I played, and which is gameplay's playing from it now, is a indie game from the makers of Gris called Neva.
Neva, and that's the footage we're seeing, right?
And that's the footage. Yes, it is a lovely game. I know, like it's critically lauded. I think it's like an 86 or an 87 on Metacritic, and it's very much like Gris, although Gris was more exploration. This is realms into the area of combat. So the setup is like I don't even know what it is, but you're just there, and you kind of are going through the forest, and you are with your nice little pup, nice little wolf pup, Neva. I won't tell you what happens at the beginning of the game, so you can experience that for yourself. But you're basically going through these areas. It's a side-scrolling action platformer, that is also very much told through inference of like there's no dialogue. Everything, the story is told by what's on screen So you gotta be, paying attention. You might miss stuff. But as you can tell, it's beautifully constructed. Like there are some parts where it really looks like a water painting, and
It does look good. It does look
Yeah.
really nice.
and the thing that separates itself from Gris is the combat, because in this will come across what else I can only describe as corruption. These like blobs of black thing that take form and that you have to fight. So while there's 4 quote unquote levels in the game, there's summer, fall, winter, spring. As you go through the levels, like Neva, who's your companion, in the very beginning, he's like very small. He's kind of scared of the enemies, and you can pet him and you can call him to you. Like as the game goes on, like when you get to winter, you get to spring. He's big boy. He gets bigger in each season, and then he actually starts to help you in combat more. Right? So in the beginning, you're kind of protecting him. The combat's really basic. It's just like a 3-swipe combo, and if you're above the enemies jumping down, you can do a down X and you'll dash down. So you'll be going through these parts where sometimes you got to do a little bit of jumping maneuvers or jumping obstacles to get over certain things, to climb up or whatever. There's some collectibles to find, but they're not that important. And then you'll have these fights, and you only have like 3 things of health, and that means every time you get hit, you lose it. You can die pretty quickly, but the more you hit an enemy while you're engaging them in combat without getting hit back, you'll gain one of your things of health back. So like I think it's like 6 hits uninterrupted will give you 1 thing of your health, and then usually you'll come to the checkpoints with refill it. So it's that kind of setup of like, hey, I'm exploring through this world. I'm gonna do some climbing, some platforming to get past some stuff. There'll be some combat. Maybe some story things will take place, a chase, a boss fight, or whatever. And it's about a 5-hour experience, which is about the length of their last game. And even some of the times I was playing this game, and I'm like, is this set in the universe of Gris? Because there are some locations and some architecture that are very reminiscent of it, but I'm just not sure. But I really enjoyed the game. I mean, it doesn't really do anything new or like transcend the genre of this specific type of game. But what it does here, it does exceedingly well, right? If you enjoy this type of experience, you will enjoy this game. Some people already talk about how like it pulls at the heartstrings because you got a little pup dog. And you know what happens when a little pup dog gets bigger and he's a little big wolf dog and he's helping you with combat, you kind of get in the worry in the back of your mind, like, it's like, is he going to die? Which is like, no, don't kill pup dog, right? Because, that's usually like kind of one of the things people are is like, don't hurt the animals, right? But I think I beat it in 1 sitting. That's how engaged I was with this. I mean, like Silent Hill 2 is like 19 hours, and I'm not going to sit down and play Silent Hill 2 for 19 hours. But usually when I play Silent Hill 2, I play it for like 5 hours or something, and then play some the next day. This one I started it, I think at 7 p.m., and I finished it at like midnight. And it was a great experience. Between the music, oh my god, the music, Jez. Whew. The music's really good. Even though sometimes I died quite a bit, and I think maybe even showed it here. I was fighting these 2 things in the sky, and I kept on falling the platform and dying. Usually if you did die, you kind of are right back where you were. Although it does have a difficulty level where you don't die, you just kind of fall down. So you could play it on the regular difficulty or the easy difficulty where you don't die. It's just kind of like you just kind of stop what you're doing and then you just continue on. But yeah, every level adds on to your combat a little bit. Although you kind of keep the 3-hit combo. Your little wolf guy, he does more as part of the combat, to the point where you can even direct him to attack things later on in the game. And there's like the world they're building with, like the lore, you can tell, but it's all told through the environment and the pictures and what you're looking at. But I think it's $20, and I liked it quite a bit. It probably would be in my top 10, just outside maybe my top 5. I'd have to kind of really think down what I've played this year, but I will say I think I like Gris more, because I do think the combat in this, and if maybe this is one of my complaints about it, is that the combat is a little too basic. It's like the same three.
I did think, looking at it, it looked a bit.
But I think I don't want to say that's the point, but like the point of the game isn't necessarily the combat. It's like the bonds you're building with the wolf, the platforming, which is actually surprisingly really good. Like the platforming, because you have a double jump and you have a dash, and you can chain those. Like you could jump and then dash and then jump again. Or you just dash and then double jump, or double jump and then dash. There's a lot of different ways to get around. That stuff is actually controls very well. The combat is just kind of like, okay, yeah, this is just to get, as part of the story of fighting the corruption. It's just there. You don't really fight too much. And then, like, you do get stronger because the wolf helps you, so the fights don't last as long as they kind of do in the beginning. But, yeah, I mean, I think the critics are right about this game. Like 86, 87 is probably where it is, and it's probably where I would put it. And, yeah, check it out if you really like Gris, or if you like this type of genre. I think you'd be down for a nice little 5 hours, This life's 5-hour experience. But Jez, let's talk about
is it on Game Pass?
No, it is not on Game Pass. It's also a Devolver Digital game. They published it.
Devolver is pretty damn great, bro.
Yeah, usually Devolver Digital or Annapurna are pretty top tier publishers. But
Annapurna, not anymore.
Well, not anymore. They don't exist. But I want to talk about the Xbox partner preview, right?
Mm-hmm.
We'll go through this, and I guess we'll give you your overview. Did you check out the trailers and the show at all?
I haven't watched it at all. Like when partner preview, dude, when the partner preview event going live, I was literally in the air, I think,
bro.
So I had no means with which to watch the stream. I don't
want to hear this shit. You've been home how long? The thing was like 25 minutes long, bro.
I got home. 5 p.m. I went straight to bed to prep for this podcast. I woke up at 8:30 and literally came to the PC, so I have no time to watch it. Some of us have to work for a living, right?
Oh my god, Jez. What were you doing on the plane ride? You couldn't spend 25 minutes to watch it on the plane ride?
I was reading Berserk on the plane.
Oh my god, you're reading Berserk. Hey, I
downloaded Berserk. I downloaded Kindle Berserk, dude. You need to read that book, man. Like, I knew what was going to happen in at the end of the Golden Age arc because I've seen the anime from the 90s, but the manga is just it's just amazing. It's the best. It's the best.
Well, I'll give my thoughts on it. I thought, because this is, I think, maybe the third time they've done this, a partner preview, right? Tina Amini and her team is putting together. I think Tina Amini has done an incredible job kind of focusing and rebranding these showcases, whether it's a developer direct in January, whether it's these partner previews, and whether it's like the big showcase in the middle of the year in June. Because I just remember Inside Xbox, everybody hated that, and some of the things they used to do before Tina Amini came on that were, weren't so good. I think her and her team have done a great job kind of focusing on the things that matter and doing, like, these are fun to watch, right? Just to see what's coming to the platform. And like, my expectations for partner previews are on the lower end. Like, they're never on the scale of the showcase, because you're not going to get any first party reveals or anything like that, but you'll see some cool games. So when I watched it, I was like, I think they have it down pat, right? They kind of have the trailers, and they'll be like, hey, go to Xbox Wire to hear more about this game. And it's really quick and breezy. I'd probably give this game like a B, or the showcase like a B. Because
I did see Jeff Keighley's poll B was winning.
Yeah, it was definitely the best one of these, like the partner previews. They started off with Alan Wake 2.
My Xbox my contact said they felt like it was the best one
Yeah.
internally as well.
I think also because they have there was a lot of new content here, a lot of content that seemed interesting. So they started off with the expansion of Alan Wake 2, The Lake House, showed off a trailer with the release date of October 22nd, which is in 3 days, and I cannot wait to play this because, as I said, Alan Wake 2 is my game of the year last year. So you play as a new character. Well, not a new character, but you don't play as Alan Wake or the other character you played as in the game, but you play as one of the FPC agents, and there's something going on at the lake house, and there's like a new enemy, and I think you have new weapons, so I cannot wait to play this on Tuesday. I think the 22nd is Tuesday, yeah. I cannot wait. Now, we were talking about Bloober Team because I had just finished playing Silent Hill 2 and how much I loved it. And then I mentioned how much of their previous games I didn't really like, even like hating Layers of Fear. We got our first look at their next game. And I am immensely intrigued because it's almost like this is
definitely like since Silent Hill, it's kind of like, oh, I'm gonna sit up.
Well, this one's gonna have combat, right? Where the other two previous games of theirs didn't.
Yeah.
But it almost seems like Bloober's like, hey, we just took on Silent Hill 2. Let's take on Dead Space now. Because it's definitely a science fiction set. It seems like you're a dude in like a really weird, almost like Russian-looking cosmonaut suit. Because the trailer starts off, you're playing with your grandma or an older lady, but then it kind of switches to you're fighting some zombies.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm actually like watching the trailer as you speak. Yeah, so
you know how much I like science fiction stuff, and
you sure do.
Now my expectations for Bloober Team are high because of how well they did Silent Hill 2, and it kind of looks like it's like, hey, what if we kind of did Dead Space or our own Dead Space? So, yeah, and a lot of these games, in fact, most of them outside of Alan Wake 2, and I think the one that was Blind Fire. These were all 2025. Some of them coming to Game Pass as well, so that's always fun. So Chronos to New Dawn definitely had my attention. We had a trailer for Blind Fire, which was the game I mentioned, was like a shadow drop. But it's like a shooter that takes the light away from the arena, which is an odd thing to do, because how can you find somebody to shoot? But then as the longer the matches go on, like they add more neon light to the arena. It's available now. You can play it. I haven't checked it out, and I really don't have any interest to check out that one.
Yeah, can't you also like use the flash from your gun to light the arena
Yeah,
up?
I think so. But it's
there's actually a scene in Berserk where they do that. And anyway, yeah, I don't know. That's not really my cup of tea, but
I think that other shooter that is kind of in beta, Fragpunk, I think is more of a better chance of, like lasting and surviving than Blind Fire,
Mm-hmm.
Either way, we got a trailer for Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza.
That's just wild, man.
It is like a crazy looking game, and I'm sure all the Like a Dragon fans are going to love it. But they actually bumped up their release date, Jez, because before it was coming February 28th, the same day as Monster Hunter Wilds. And they, instead of delaying it, they bumped it forward, so it now comes out February 21st.
Yeah, they actually commented on that. Did you see the comments?
No, what was the comments about it?
They said, we want you to be able to play Monster Hunter without feeling stressed out or something like that. Basically, they moved it so Japanese fans could, get their Yakuza in and then go to play Monster Hunter. Because obviously both franchises are massively popular in Japan. Monster Hunter Wild is going to be a fucking event.
It's going to be a huge game. It's going to be a massive game.
It's going to be... Oh, man, I'm so excited for that game. I can't tell you, man, how much. I actually might take time off work for that, actually.
A lot of people are kind of hoping Xbox does that for Avowed, what Sega just did for Like a Dragon, where they move it forward.
I did ask some people about that, if they were thinking about it, and they said, they gave me sort of PR response, we're always evaluating. So I think there is a chance that Avowed could move up. If it
Avowed's
is
coming
finished.
out the 18th, I believe.
I February's stacked, man.
Yeah,
I
February
would
is
put Avowed in
absolutely
January if
stacked.
possible.
Yeah, if you could get it.
I really want to play Avowed, but there's no universe where I would play Avowed before playing Monster Hunter. There's just no universe, and I think that's probably true for a lot of people. I think putting Avowed in that time frame is just sending it out to die. But
Well,
at the same time, it's like, maybe there's not a huge amount of overlap there. I don't know.
yeah, maybe they can move it forward to like beginning of February or like late January, which would be great.
But maybe it's okay to play games later nowadays. Like, there's so many games I haven't touched that
I mean,
really
hell,
wanted
I
to play
waited
this
3
year.
years to play Cyberpunk, and I think it's the best game I played this generation. And I don't think you would say it was already that at the beginning, but 3 years later with that expansion, with Phantom Liberty and all the changes they made to it in the base game, like, yeah, it was definitely a different experience.
A lot of people in the chat are saying they should have moved Avowed to like January.
Well,
I'm inclined to agree.
Yeah,
I think they should.
We'll see what happens. Then we had a very interesting looking shooter here, Mouse PI for Hire.
I've covered that game before.
Yeah, I think it's out on PC now, but it basically looks like Mickey Mouse with a gun when you're running around in like a Mickey Mouse old time cartoon. Like Cuphead, but not the side scroller and without color. So that's coming in 2025.
It's really it's a boomer shooter kind of, but
a boomer shooter.
I love boomer shooters, man. It's become one of my favorite sort of trends in modern gaming. Like, did you play that Warhammer 40k boomer shooter? I can't remember what it's called.
Darktide?
No.
Or Vermintide?
It was pixel graphics.
Oh, Bolt Gun?
Bolt Gun, yeah. Did you play that?
I did not play that one, no.
Dude, that game is really good. It's really good, man.
Speaking of Warhammer, 40k Space Marine 2, they announced 4.5 million people played it. 4.5 million sales in like a month or whatever.
Oh, yeah. I'm surprised you didn't have Space Marine 2 higher on you.
No, Space Marine 2's there. Like, if you talk about like Prince of Persia, Silent Hill 2, Hellblade, Astrobot, like Warhammer.
That's really need to finish that game.
Warhammer is like right there, 5, 6. I mean, all those games, especially like when you get down to Hellblade, Astrobot, and like Warhammer, they're all like kind of what I think of them are all very similar. But yeah, no, it's not there. It's not like it's outside the top 10. It's definitely in there. We have and I could have sworn this game was already announced, but apparently it wasn't. Subnautica 2. I thought this was already a thing.
The reason you thought this was already a thing was because they did a kind of a spin-off expand-alone called, I think it was called Subnautica Below Zero or something.
Oh, okay.
And I spoke to when they first announced that, I spoke to PR and I was like, so is this Subnautica 2? And they were like, yeah, but no, but yeah. And I was like, why aren't they just calling it Subnautica 2? That's just going to confuse the hell out of everyone. And I think it did, because now we got legit Subnautica 2. Everyone was confused about what Below Zero was. Is this an expansion? Is it a sequel? Blah 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 blah. Whatever. But no, Subnautica 2 is a thing now. I'm like, Subnautica is one of my big backlog shames, because this is a game that I feel like I would like, that I've just never gotten around to playing. I love deep sea stuff, and I love watching Abyss documentaries. I love giant squid and krakens and all that kind of shit. I love sharks. Me and my girlfriend watch so many oceanic documentaries, it's embarrassing. So this is like a game that I would love to play. I just can't. I always start it, and I'm just like, shit, I don't have time.
Well, this one also, this one's got co-op, or I don't think the first game had co-op, or you had to maybe play it on PC to get mods for it to be co-op.
I'm not sure.
But this one's got co-op, and it's also coming to Game Pass. So it's going to be in early access, and I think they even said it's going to be in early access for like 2-3 years or something. But I think that's a pretty big get for Game Pass, Subnautica 2, because it's pretty big. It's a pretty big game. So yeah, I mean, it's also the survival stuff, and you know me, I don't care about survival. We did get a shadow drop from Animal Well, which is, I think, a game that Donkey publishing group put out. That was
Animal Well. Let's have a look at that.
it reviewed incredibly well because it was also one.
Incredibly well.
Yeah, it was one of those games that was exclusively not on Xbox. Came to PC, Switch, and PlayStation.
All right.
And I think it's like low 90s maybe for
I've never heard of it.
Metacritic. It
looks really weird and cool.
But yeah, it finally came to Xbox yesterday or on Thursday. Yeah. So
what the hell is it?
It's like a Metroidvania secret kind of game. A lot of secrets. But
okay,
everybody
I can see there's a little. You play as a little blob.
Mm-hmm.
Do you shoot things?
I don't think so.
It looks fantastic. It looks. The art style and the animations are really unique.
But it's a highly regarded game, that's for sure. So I think I have that. I downloaded that, so maybe I'll check it out at some point.
Oh, he shadow dropped. Okay.
Yeah, shadow dropped. We got a trailer. We got a trailer for Eden Zero, which is based off a manga, I believe. I don't have any interest in this type of stuff, but maybe Jez would. I'm sure other people in chat might be looking for it.
Looks shonen,
but
my genre.
This one,
sorry, go on.
Well, this next game, not only do they get this in Game Pass, which is good, but this is a game you probably looking forward to. This is Michael Aidlaw's game.
What is that?
The Dragon Age guy, his new studio.
Yeah, but what's the game?
Eternal Strands. It's their new game. This might be.
I'm find that.
Might be up Jez's alley here. I don't know. It looked cool. They also got it to get me on Game Pass. So.
Oh, it looks interesting. I'm not a huge fan. It's got like stylized graphics. I'm not a huge fan of that generally. Like I don't know if it's because Warcraft is all I can tolerate from stylized graphics now, but I suppose like it's a good way to offset costs when you're a new studio. But it looks a bit like it's got what's that game called now where you climb on the mobs? I can't remember what it's called. Come on, brain.
I don't know.
That PlayStation 1 game, PlayStation 2 game.
Like Shadow of the Colossus?
Yeah, that's the one. It looks like it's got some of that kind of DNA, a little bit maybe. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of the art style, but maybe it's good. I don't know. We'll see.
Then there was a trailer for a Mistfall Hunter, another game coming in 2025 when it's a mix between an extraction game and a Souls-like. Sometimes now, though...
Played an extraction game?
Have I played an extraction game?
Yeah, have you ever played one? Like, this genre seems to be something that's just completely passed me by at the moment.
No, I haven't played an extraction game, but I will say when I see a Souls-like, I kind of just roll my eyes at this point. Just like, oh, no.
Are you over it?
I never really was in it, though. You know, like, there are games, I can tolerate them, but and then there's even another one, like, later on, right? The Wukong Fallen Feathers.
I thought that looked good.
Yeah, but it's also another one of those Souls-likes. This one will be in Game Pass. And it does look good. I'm not saying they don't look good, but when you see these kind of dark games, and it's just... And I sit there and I'm like, man, these Souls-like are just like a dime a dozen now. And I get it, right? Developers kind of make the games that they are inspired by. And Dark Souls and, Elden Ring have inspired so many games now. And you have so many of these type of experiences. But for someone who doesn't necessarily always love Souls-likes, it can just be like, another one of these. Like, oh, man, look at all the cool... art style and stuff. And there's like, oh, well, the game itself is a Souls, and it's just like, what if someone doesn't like Souls, then it seems like a wasted opportunity, at least for you.
I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at the trailer now, and it's not really giving Souls. I mean, the combat looks a lot more, I don't know, third person-y, I suppose. I don't know how to describe that. It almost reminds me of like Smite kind of combat. And I suppose it would have to be PvPvE. Would be difficult to pull off in the sort. I really think like the sort of From Software style combat might be more difficult to pull off in a group PvP setting. I mean, even 1v1, it's kind of imbalanced as hell, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know. It looks alright. I haven't extraction genre is something that's completely passed me by. I mean, I did play the Dark Zone back in the day in the Division, and I suppose like a lot of these extraction kind of shooters are inspired by like modes in other games that and now it's become a genre, kind of like Dota did in a way. I kind of wonder if this is more up my alley because more so than Battle Royale, because I did play the extraction mode in that Delta Force game at a preview event, and I actually thought, oh, actually this is pretty fun, you know. But I don't know, maybe I'll try this. But I kind of feel like it's the kind of game you have to play with friends to really enjoy. But,
so there's next game was something from Annapurna Interactive, which used to be called Ghost Bike, but is now called Wheel World. It's coming to Game Pass, and it's a bike-based adventure game that mixes the carefree nature of cycling with seems to be a little mystery. So if you're a cyclist, maybe you might like it. I don't know. I guess it depends on the mystery in the game. Phasmophobia was announced for Xbox, coming to Series X on the 29th, which, I mean, that game's like, what, 4 years old at this point? A little bit? Like, it's huge. It was huge on PC when it kind of blew up. Kind of supposed to be, like, really scary game.
I've gotten a bunch of PR for that, but I haven't really checked it out because it's one of them games where it's just like, I know I can't fit it in, so I'm not even gonna check it out. But watching the trailer now, it does look pretty interesting.
What about this next game? We got Legend of Babbo, we got a big white fluffy dog on the cover, Jez, that you can play as, and you're a little
doggo.
Yeah, nice big doggo.
Doggo. I can't find the trailer for that on the website, on the YouTube channel rather. Oh no, I can. There it is. All right, what kind of game is this?
Kind of looks like a kind of Bridge of Spirits type game.
It's a Souls-like.
No, not a Souls-like. 3D adventure. But hey,
yeah, action adventure.
You get the dog.
That's I think earlier when I was saying like it looks more third person-y than Dark Souls. I was trying to figure out what I was trying to say, and I think like what I was trying to say, like the Legend of Babu, more like arcade action adventure kind of style gameplay than Souls like. But yeah, I don't know. It doesn't look like a good one for me.
Did you hear that that Subnautica 2 game is getting hounded by the DEI grifters now?
Why?
Apparently because it features a black guy in it. Apparently, that's why.
Wow, I didn't even notice that.
Mm-hmm. Black Viking on Twitter was making fun of it, and he's just like, "This is what they're gonna say." And then, sure enough, people today or yesterday started saying that, and it's just like, "Wow, you can even predict what they'll say about something," which is funny.
Yeah, it's just so exhausting though. It's like if someone just exists, that's woke now. So exhausting, man. I was looking at the badass crab thing. Should I install Subnautica?
So we started the show with a trailer for Remedy's game, and we ended the show with a trailer for Remedy's newest game, their co-op shooter that people have been wondering about for a long time. Is called FBC Firebreak, which is set in the oldest house, but you're just kind of the first responders. It looks totally different than anything Remedy has made before. 3-player, it's a first-person shooter, but it's 3-player co-op, and it certainly is. It's kind of out there, man. I don't know what to expect, and I am somebody who really likes Remedy games. From Control to Quantum Break, to Alan Wake and stuff. And my first thought seeing this was, well, it's interesting what they're going for. I'm not necessarily sure it's something I'm like dying to play day one, but we'll see.
I think it looks really good.
I have a lot. I don't know. I don't know, something about maybe the first person's perspective, because usually Remedy games are third person. That's throwing me off a bit. I'm sure it's probably going to play very well.
I think the Remedy's like Remedy shooting in Remedy games, like even though I Control didn't grip me, and Quantum Break had its issues, but like that since Max Payne 1, I feel like they've been at the cutting edge of gunplay that feels great. So like I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's their engine or how they use some of the middleware or whatever, but their gunplay feels great, and part of it's like the ragdolls. I don't know what it is about Remedy games, like Quantum Break gunplay, like sucking all the dudes into a vortex and then having the bullets stop in slow motion and then all spring out at once. Just fantastic. Like that shooter. I god damn, I wish Microsoft had just fund Quantum Break too. I really that's the white whale for me.
You might have to, yeah.
I might start pushing for that. Just start pushing for that. But yeah, I think this looks pretty good. And as someone who's kind of tired of PvP shooters, like I haven't touched Overwatch in ages.
Yeah, it's not
I
a
kind of
PvP
like the idea of playing PvE.
PvE. It's also coming to Game Pass and apparently also PlayStation Premium and an extra, which is you don't really see a game launching on both at the same time, but maybe they're worried about the game having longevity or a player base, so what better way to do it than put it on both subscription services and probably get a bag from both PlayStation and Xbox for it?
I think that'll give it the best chance of having a boost to get that audience, that flowing audience. Like, I know people sort of like, they're not necessarily enamored with the idea of another sort of horde kind of shooter, because there are quite a lot of these now, and we've also got Space Marine 2's got their horde service that they're kind of doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I also think it's going to be good for Remedy's health as a studio if they have at least one service game pillar. I think every studio right now is looking for that sort of that safety net of having a service game that can provide them with ongoing revenue. And one thing that like PlayStation Network, PS Plus, and Xbox Game Pass do is that they will renew the deal for games in Game Pass as long as the engagement is there. So like that could be the vehicle that FBC Firebreak not only finds its audience but also finds its funding, and also gives Remedy a sort of consistent revenue stream beyond their back catalogue of games. And I know it can work because look at Deep Rock Galactic is a great example of a game that was pretty light on features when it launched, and it went through an early access kind of period, and now it's huge, man. It's like a big game, and it's become a really big a big game for that studio, and it's allowed them to experiment and do other things, and also keep that game growing and have a core fan base that will also always give them that sort of ongoing revenue stream. So hopefully FBC Fire, I'm gonna be bullish on this. I think it looks pretty good, and I'm gonna try it out.
Oh, I mean, I'll probably definitely play it for sure.
Point.
But
we should play it on stream with the community at some point, maybe, or something.
Ooh. Yeah. So that was the partner preview. Some cool looking games, but then
what was
I think
Dead by Daylight thing?
Dead by Daylight.
Haunted by Daylight. Oh no, that wasn't at the event. Never mind. Ignore me.
Yeah, so now we got our eyes look forward to what's going to be at the Game Awards. That's in a couple months, and then the Developer Direct, which the last 2 years has been in January. So, we'll see if Xbox has anything at the Game Awards and what their lineup is for the Developer Direct. Kind of out of nowhere, Jez, we have some Call of Duty stuff since the launch is next week. Not only did they announce
next week,
yeah, it's Friday next week.
Oh my!
Call of Duty Black Ops 6.
That has really crept up on me, man.
Yeah.
Oh,
so they announced first, to your chagrin, Call of Duty Black Ops 6, Modern Warfare, and or Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 and Warzone will be coming to Xbox Cloud Gaming, which we weren't sure was actually going to happen because Ubisoft owns the streaming rights to these things, and yet Jez is still sitting here waiting for Diablo to hit Cloud Gaming. And he's just like, can a man get a Diablo on his mobile phone, perhaps? Streaming? Come on, what's going on? But yeah, so
Yeah.
Xbox Cloud Gaming is going to get the COD stuff. But then they also announced a controller, a Elite controller, as well as a Xbox Series X wrap, all available through purchase to the Design Lab. And some
a new
people
dynamic background just dropped
new
as
dynamic
well.
background. Yeah, some people were lamenting the fact that they didn't actually have any new hardware available in stores with the design with the game bundled in, which kind of PlayStation's done in recent years. But I sort of feel like Microsoft doing limited edition Xboxes in mass is probably over at this point. I think there's a reason they did these wraps, is because they're done actually, because they'll make these like Indiana Jones, this one-off system with a cool controller that they do for all these sweepstakes, but they never actually let you buy any of that stuff. And you would think with how popular Call of Duty is, a Call of Duty branded Xbox might actually sell well to people who want to upgrade from the Xbox One maybe, or finally at that point where they're like, I want to upgrade to next gen. You could put those out there. Maybe there might be some PlayStation guys that are like, I'm going to get it on Xbox or whatever, like whatever scenario. Like, it's a big enough franchise that Sony always had a bundle for it. But Xbox didn't. I mean, they have the wrap and they have the controllers available at the Design Lab. I'm just wondering if this is just basically telling everybody, like, yeah, don't expect any limited edition consoles ever from us again. Maybe something for the 25th anniversary down the road in a couple years, but this is kind of how it's going to be. And I mean, it's good they're doing it because I think people would buy them. I don't know. I don't want a wrap for my console. I don't know. People, but maybe people do. I don't know. But then again, I wouldn't be interested in buying a brand new console anyways if it even had Call of Duty stuff on it. But I sort of wonder if maybe the late integration is a reason for this. Like, there wasn't enough lead time to actually make a Call of Duty branded console, because I do hear that these kind of controllers and these consoles actually do need a longer, like run up to actually doing them, and we know that they weren't working together, and the integration stuff kind of, has been ongoing. So maybe there just wasn't enough time to make a new console with the Call of Duty stuff and a regular controller where you could put it out in Amazon and different places. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, like the whole thing with custom anything related to Xbox, I kind of feel like their strategy is doesn't make sense in a lot of directions. Like, I think our headline for the wrap was, "Oh, Microsoft remembered that it actually makes wraps." It's like, they have these wraps and that they've barely been selling them. But like, to your point, it would have been way smarter to actually just do a custom console and convince those people to actually upgrade. The Beer Baron in chat says it's like they're purposely not trying to sell consoles. And sometimes, like, some of the decisions on even like some of these simple things, like just doing a custom console instead of a wrap, kind of makes you feel like maybe there is just a really minimal amount of budget and effort going into the whole console space right now. Like the Series X or digital, for example, they haven't made many units for that, and it's only been sold in the UK, US, and Western Europe, from what I can tell. They haven't. I don't know if the units have gone out to Japan. I need to check that. But a lot of those smaller market regions, they haven't got any units. So it's like, that's Microsoft admitting that they don't think that'll sell, and it's not a very compelling product. But I do think these custom consoles would sell or convince people to upgrade, especially when they're tied to these sort of, so-called black hole games like Call of Duty. There is a monstrous amount of people still, playing Call of Duty on Xbox One. I mean, this game's coming to Xbox One, right? If I'm remembering correctly, right?
The what?
Call of Duty, this Black Ops 6 is coming to Xbox One, right?
Yes.
So, this would have been an opportunity to get people to upgrade, but I don't know. Ain't happening.
Maybe it'll happen next year. Maybe they're waiting for, hey, you have Call of Duty ongoing now, right? You can maybe do that for, next gen launch of hardware or something, because there's a Call of Duty every single year, right? So we'll see what they do with it. But I remember I had mentioned this before in the show. I was like, where's the Call of Duty controller? Like, at least the controller, like, you would think you could. I mean, we know how much Xbox loves controllers, for Christ's sake. Like, you'd be like, why aren't they selling a Call of Duty controller? Those would sell. And then here's the controller. The flip side is I think it's only available at the design lab. So, yeah. There's that Call of Duty stuff. How do you feel about Diablo being the black sheep so far of not being on cloud gaming?
I have no idea. Obviously the Ubisoft stuff introduced a lot of complexities when it comes to what games are going to be on what aspect of the platform, when, where, and why. Because Ubisoft owns the rights to it, and they can dictate what deals they want for that stuff. Microsoft must have really wanted Call of Duty in Game Pass, because you would have thought Ubisoft, that'd be something Ubisoft would want to keep to their chest, right? So how much did Microsoft pay for this when you consider the fact that they couldn't even get Diablo into cloud, which I would think makes far more sense in every regard to put in cloud than Call of Duty does. The latency is not going to make Call of Duty in cloud a great experience, maybe beyond the campaign. I could see you could, if you've got the right conditions, maybe you can play the campaign. But a twitchy shooter like that on cloud, especially if you're using a Bluetooth controller, I don't see how that's going to be a great experience. But Diablo, with its fixed camera perspective, that works a lot better for their video encoding algorithm. So when it's got a fixed camera perspective, it only needs to update the edge of the image, right? And it can actually move everything else at the bottom on screen. So oftentimes you'll find games that are side-scrolling or have a fixed camera perspective, like Hades or whatever. They often handle a lot better on xCloud just because the picture algorithm doesn't have to update as frequently as it does with the full 3D game, where it has to update every time you move the camera slightly because there's more shadows coming in or whatever, Obviously Diablo is 3D and there is a lot going on in that game, but it's also this is a game that would work well with touch because it's got a fixed camera perspective. So you can have one thumb to control the character and then your other thumb to use all the attacks, right, on the screen at the same time, because you've only got two thumbs when you're playing a cloud game, right? If you don't have a controller. So in every regard, Diablo makes more fucking sense on cloud. So increasingly, I'm just kind of trying to think did Ubisoft sell the rights to Diablo exclusively to NVIDIA GeForce Now? Because maybe they did. Maybe NVIDIA GeForce Now bought a timed exclusivity period for cloud, or whatever, or a timed exclusionary period where it's okay, you can't put this in xCloud for X amount of days, Because if you do want to play Diablo on cloud right now, you have to use NVIDIA GeForce Now, which is generally a better experience anyway. If you're paying all the way up to the top for GeForce Now, you're getting a much better bit rate, which is obviously going to be better for games with a lot of particle effects like Diablo. But
Tom Warren also just reported that there's supposed to be a bitrate upgrade coming to the cloud and stuff, right?
I think people who are hoping for a bitrate upgrade in the near term are probably going to be disappointed. I've heard that there aren't plans to upgrade the bitrate anytime soon. And what Microsoft's system does is they will update the bitrate for specific games. So the pixel particle effects in Vampire Survivors, for example, that demanded having a higher bitrate because so many pixels popping off the screen all the time. If you have pixelization there, it will really interfere with the way the game looks. You won't be able to see anything. It'd be blurry as hell. But when it's sort of more 3D, you can sort of interpolate what you're supposed to be looking at, and it's sort of the aspects of the game sort of blend together. But when it's like a pixel game, which is very sharp, very sharp pixels, if you add pixelization on top of that, the game's just going to look like a complete mess. So Microsoft does boost the bitrate in certain situations on a per game basis, and I think something like Diablo probably would get a higher bitrate because of all the particle effects constantly popping off on screen. But I don't think they have a plan to blanket upgrade the bitrate at the moment, from what I've heard. But obviously, long term, of course, they're going to be looking to upgrade the bitrate long term. I mean, they're probably like right now the servers are based on the Xbox Series X architecture, which is obviously not the future of the platform. Eventually, they're going to move away from that and probably move to something more PC based. I would imagine. Maybe then the plan is to move to more traditional AMD based servers that have, that are more designed for video encoding, because obviously the Series X is not really designed for cloud gaming. It was sort of repurposed on the basis of the fact that we want people to be sending us Xbox versions of games rather than PC versions of games. But I think next gen, when Xbox and PC converges, it'll make way more sense to just make them more traditional PC servers in the future. But I don't think in the near term you're going to see a big bit rate boost. That was kind of complicated to say. I'm trolling Xbox Era while we're also, because Xbox Era are live right now.
Yeah.
I'm sort of popping off into their chat to troll them a little bit.
Justin Plays says in super chat, Xbox games will run better on PS5 Pro for the time being. Yeah, most likely. True. But then Xbox games have always run best on PC, and those PC games will run better than the PS5 Pro version. So,
yeah. It's they're not. I mean, I think Tom Henderson reported that Sony are going to require developers to leverage the PS5 Pro features.
Well, they require like supporting it with like one of the features. Like, it doesn't mean they have to do a whole bunch of stuff to actually fit the requirements or whatever.
Yeah, but super resolution should just bring blanket benefits by its own virtue, I think, to some degree at least. But yeah, I don't know. Of course, Xbox games are probably going to run better on PS5 Pro, but like Rand says, they're going to run best on 4090 PC, unless it's some Unreal Engine game.
Unless it's Unreal. Well, a lot of Xbox games are Unreal, aren't they? Though.
Yeah, and you have to spend 20 minutes.
But speaking of PlayStation, Spider-Man 2, which just released a year ago in October of last year, has already been announced for PC. It was announced at the New York Comic-Con, coming to PC end of January 2025. And man, that window for, because a lot of people thought as long as Sony keeps the window 2 years like it has been with, Horizon Forbidden West and God of War Ragnarok, which is roughly 2 years, that'd be good. But now that window is kind of tightened to 1 year. Because Spider-Man 2 just came out last year, right? They also kind of experimented with day one PC games with Until Dawn and Concord, and I'm sure they'll probably do more, especially with their, live service stuff. But I think Sony's going to continue to close that gap a little bit. Wouldn't be surprised if you start seeing it eventually in the future to be 6 months, and maybe even 3 months until basically everything's probably day and date.
I would not believe if they eventually. I would not be surprised rather if they eventually do move to day and date. There's just too much money to be left on the table, and it's such an inefficiency when you don't line up your marketing's hype cycle with your game launches. Because every time you launch a PC game on PC, and you haven't put your full marketing weight behind it because you've already spent the budget to do the PS5 version, you just wasted money. It's just bad. It's just bad business. And there's no amount of exclusives that are going to make a Steam user move across the PC. There's no amount. There's no universe. I think the audiences that we have now are pretty much established, and you get like the younger cohorts. They're going to come in and go straight to PC or Switch 2 probably. And I think the PlayStation and we talked a little bit about this last week, but I think PlayStation and Xbox both have really neglected building up nostalgia with younger cohorts, because all those younger cohorts, they've grown up playing the Switch, they've grown up getting addicted to Nintendo franchises, and they're going to go straight into Switch 2. and not really care about the rest of it. And their parents are going to get them a Switch 3 or a Switch 4, because of that. But anyway, it's a separate topic. I do think day and date's coming for PC, for Sony. It's just a matter of time, really. Just a matter of time.
Well, Sony's former head, Sean Layden, was in the news a little bit here because he said there's a collapse of creativity in the industry. They're relying on blockbusters as a death sentence. He said today the entry cost of making a AAA game is in the triple-digit millions now. I think naturally risk tolerance drops, and you're looking at sequels, you're looking at copycats, because the Finex guys who draw the line say, well, if Fortnite made this much money in this amount of time, my Fortnite knockoff can make this in this amount of time. And we're seeing a collapse of creativity in games today with studio consolidation and the high cost of production. Then he went on to say that AA is gone, which he described as a threat to the ecosystem. He said, now if we can just get more interest and excitement and exposure for these lower budget, but super creative and super unusual type of games, I'd like to see more of that. Because if we're just going to rely on the blockbusters to get us through, I think that's a death sentence.
I think Sean Layden's wrong that there's a collapse of creativity. There's definitely a collapse of creativity at the AAA end, and maybe that's really what he's talking about.
Well, I mean,
really
that's what he said. The cost of entry of making a AAA game is in triple digits, which leads to, risk tolerance drops, and you're looking at sequels and you're looking at copycats, right?
It's all the creativities. There's a vast amount of creativity on PC, and I think that the freedom of PC and Steam and in general, as a lot of variety gamers, people like us who want that variety. We want to play an experience and then move on to the next one rather than just play Fortnite all day forever. A lot of that audience has gone to PC, and I think that's taken a lot of the creativity with it. I think Sony and Microsoft both could do more to align with Steam in what Steam gives developers, which is, whether it's because it's not like Xbox and PlayStation don't have the audience numbers. They do have the audience numbers, but a lot of the sort of on Steam, you don't have to compete with a lot of these big service games for eyeballs. Like, there's no Fortnite on Steam. There's no Genshin Impact on Steam. Of course, there are exclusive service games on Steam, like the Valve service games, like Dota. But a lot of that broad strokes variety, all that's gone to Steam. If I open up my Steam page, it's just there's no the only service game that I'm seeing for me right now is Throne and Liberty and Black Ops Call of Duty 6 pre-order. And then I scroll straight down and there's Dwarf Fortress on sale, which I might buy. I've always wanted to play that. Fires of Rubicon, Armored Core 6, which just announced some sales milestones, I think. Armored Core 6 did very well, which bodes well for the future of that franchise. That's on sale. But then if I go on the Xbox store, am I seeing the same kind of curation there, I suppose, when it comes to Metaphor ReFantasio's at the top, but then you've got DLC for Rainbow Six, Call of Duty, Black Ops, Game Pass stuff. So Metaphor's good. And then I scroll down and it's service game. The Finals, that's a service game, isn't it? Yeah, it is. Mm-hmm. And then FIFA. I scroll down again. I get Minecraft, Modern Warfare 3, Overwatch, Sea of Thieves. Service game. So the store on Xbox is honestly not particularly great when it comes to pushing that variety, Whereas like I open Steam up straight away and I'm just flooded with a huge variety of games, which is obviously something developers are going to be very interested in.
Yeah, but developers have also talked kind of really negatively about Steam curation, though, because there are so many games released on Steam that not everything gets floated to the top and games, basically die a death. But I mean,
they wouldn't do much better on Xbox or PlayStation, though.
Probably not.
They don't bring their games there. So, like, for every complaint they make about Steam, it's like, well, why aren't you bringing games to Xbox?
Well,
or PlayStation?
I think Sean's right in the sense that because the budgets are so high, that you're risk averse because you got so much riding on stuff that you can't really take any of the risk because you got 200 million, 300 million, 400 million riding on this. Now, that's not necessarily true for everything because, Grand Theft Auto 6 can probably take risks as long as they deliver what gamers want. Like they could, but there's not really many others that could really do that. And what I do think is funny about this is I sort of feel like he was the one that kind of shepherded in this era of blockbusters, the PlayStation. I mean, you look at like Insomniac when they were making the Resistance games and all the other stuff they were making to, Sunset Overdrive, which is a very creative game, to essentially then being stuck making Spider-Man. I mean, he even mentions in this thing about the idea of like, hey, risk tolerance drops and you're looking at sequels. And what has Insomniac done since then? Spider-Man 1, Ratchet and Clank, which is a sequel, Miles Morales, which is a sequel, Spider-Man 2, and what do we know that they're working on? Possibly a Venom spinoff, a Spider-Man 3, X-Men games from Marvel, right? You look at like that stuff and it's like, yeah, you can see that in action because it's like apparent. And like a lot of Sony's big blockbusters, it's like, well, yeah, I mean, you're not going to take that many risks. And so it's kind of funny to him like say that when he was kind of the one who ushered it in on the PlayStation side of things. And then to say like, oh, because of consolidation, considering he works for Tencent, the king of consolidation in the industry. And I agree with him, like in the way that, when he talks about this stuff, because it's like, you can't really have this thing where the blockbusters keep on getting more expensive and more expensive and more expensive because like, is there the audience there to support each and every one of those games, or you're going to have some of these huge failures? And then like the phasing out of AA, at least maybe on the, the console side, right? Where it's like you used to have those games slot in and they don't really exist anymore. It's kind of just, you have AAA, you're either AAA or you're essentially indie in a way, right?
Yeah.
Which isn't good. And I think Xbox has
I saw someone describe, I saw someone tweet something like, we need more AA games like Space Marine 2. I'm like, bro, Space Marine 2 is not AA.
Space Marine 2 is a AAA game, but it feels like a 360 game, right? It feels like a game that...
Yeah, it's probably comparatively cheaper to a AAA game developed in California. But that's another issue, right? Is that, the reported budget of Black Myth Wukong was $84 million. If you developed Black Myth Wukong in Santa Monica,
yeah, it would
not have been $84 million.
Like same thing with like Pal World, which was like what, $30 million or whatever it was to make. And,
yeah,
but yeah, you make it here
in the
and
West.
it's just not that.
It's why Activision's just opened its new studio in Poland. There's a lot of these sort of countries that maybe aren't historically known for AAA game development. They are getting to that level, and it's much cheaper to hire people in those regions. And California has become extortionately expensive and prohibitively expensive to build games in that region because of, inflation, like wage inflation, right? So, and then like you run into currency conversion issues where it's like, well, I've developed this huge game, but I have to price it at this price point for this market because the purchasing power is lower. So like you're making less, dollars per, square inch or whatever unit measurement you want to use. You get the point, right?
Yeah.
Dollars per square inch. But yeah, there's all sorts of those business considerations to make, and I think like some of this is the sort of tail end of the COVID wave of economic instability, but also just the state of the world being what it is, where it's like, interest rates are still high in a lot of regions, which has pushed a lot of people out of, the luxury purchasing market. And video games are a luxury, you don't need a video game to live. Well, I do, but most people don't. And a $70 video game is a huge luxury. So like, I think the audience is shrunk. And we're seeing situations now where if a studio has one flop or doesn't have a massive, huge success story, the whole company's facing going under. And we've seen that with what's that game? Zao? Did you say it was Zao?
Yeah,
the game,
Metroidvania. Yeah.
the Metrovania. It's notified its entire company that we might have to close if we don't get a publisher for our next game, which indicates to me that the first game was nowhere near financially viable. Which is why I think you are seeing developers like Remedy look towards having at least one service game pillar that can sort of cash flow the differential that has built up with this weird wave of economic instability. But I think things will bounce back. I think we'll get back to a situation where things are better in the economy and the global global stability. People feel less risk averse, and central banks, maybe the lower interest rates again, maybe not back to the way they used to be, like crazy low interest rates. Is when the interest rates are that low, it really the risk factor is not as extreme as it is when even when your interest rates are up by like 1 or 2%. It's the risk factor is when you're talking millions of dollars. It's the amount of risk involved becomes exponentially more extreme, and then you couple that with the perfect storm of people are buying less, consumers are less confident, and wealth concentration. The stock market has had these sort of non-stop record-breaking moments, but I feel like nobody at our level is really feeling like the economy is doing well. It's almost like we've emerged into this situation of there's two economies. There's an economy where millionaires can play around gambling on the stock market without any worries because they've got like constant income, and then there's like everyone else where it's like, and this has probably always been true, but I think like before, when there were better economic times, I think people were more confident to be spending and building games that perhaps was not risky, that were perhaps more risky, and it wouldn't kill the studio at the same time. And I think people are feeling the pinch. I can see it through our own metrics on Windows Central. People, the clicks haven't gone down on the article, but the click-through rate on the accessory we might be recommending has gone down because people think, well, either they feel like the behavioral habits have changed and it's like people don't want to buy stuff as much anymore because they already own stuff, or more likely they feel more thrifty with their money. And I think all that stuff sort of feeds into this narrative that games have become less creative. But I think like even if the games were all super creative and all perfect 10 out of 10s, I think there's still a hard limit on how much people can spend and how much time people can have. I think what the real challenge the industry has is getting new people in and new people hooked on the hobby. Because right now, like, there's so much effort going towards catering the audience that already exists. And I think PlayStation and Xbox are very specifically guilty of this, where all of their investment has gone towards catering what already exists in what already exists within their network. They've really neglected finding new users. And I think when you don't have new users, how can you have growth? You can't really have growth, And I think that's really where Xbox and PlayStation is struggling right now. And Xbox is trying to find those new users in a horizontal way, whereas PlayStation is trying to find those new users by basically dominating Xbox out of the market. But I think both strategies are hugely flawed. I think you need to be looking at those younger cohorts and what are the real pain points for younger people to get into gaming. Is it cost? Is it the types of games being made? All that kind of stuff. But I feel like there's been almost no attention paid to getting those youngsters off, roadblocks and into a more healthy gaming ecosystem that can promote variety and things like that. But I don't know. It's an interesting discussion.
Well, anyways, if you guys are enjoying the show, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Let's hit some Patreon questions, Jez, shall we?
Smash it.
So we
Smash some
got
Patreon.
Silas.
We got some good ones.
Says, happy Saturday, mates. About 6 months ago, I moved from the Series X to PC as my primary gaming device. I have to say my eyes have been opened and can't believe what I've been missing. I'm not told what controller to use and what online store to purchase my software from. Having a choice of what I want, setting to auto-detect or customize settings to my liking, free cloud storage, multiplayer, switching from my OLED TV to a widescreen monitor. Best of all, I'm gaming 120 FPS. I don't think I can play an FPS or driving games at 60 FPS again. I could go on. Where do people get the idea that PC gaming is so complicated? It feels like devs think enough of PC gamers to give them the freedom to play how they want, while console gamers are having their handheld being told how to interact with their content. Well, I mean, just on for my thing was I talked to some people who play on PC and they're always like having to tinker with whatever to get things working properly, or they're not to be frame drops in their games, and they're sitting there like lower. Like I remember watching Slow-Mo play Alan Wake 2, and he spent like a good 30 minutes playing the opening of Alan Wake 2, constantly switching settings to be like high, ultra, low, or whatever it is, shadows, and just tweaking all that stuff just to get a couple extra frames on it. Like I'm not interested in doing that, and I'm not saying that like you shouldn't be doing that, but that's not something I care to do. And it's like everybody sort of feels differently. Like I just want to sit down, turn on the system and play. I don't really want to look at settings. I don't really want to do any of that stuff. Like I'll put it on performance or put it on quality and I'm going to play. And that's really it. Now other people want to tinker with their stuff and they want to set every setting to their how they like it and all that sort of stuff, which hey, you know, that's great. Play how you want, I'll play how I want. You know, it's kind of is what it is. I'm glad that you know, are loving PC gaming. So, you know, yeah. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, Spawnwave's got a tweet up right now where he's discussing, like, some people just want the convenience, you know, and I definitely felt an element of that when I was, you know, I've been playing a lot of PC games recently. I went through Frostpunk 2, Final Fantasy 16, Silent Hill 2 on my PC, you know, in and around playing Diablo. Diablo runs like a dream on my PC, like fully maxed out, everything on Ultra, it runs great, right? But then, you know, Frostpunk 2 runs like ass. Silent Hill 2 runs like ass. And Final Fantasy 16 oftentimes also runs like ass. And it's like, there's no matter what tweaks I could do, I could not get, no matter how many Reddit threads I trawled, I could not improve the performance on those games. Other games perform really well, you know, and like Cyberpunk, for example, runs flawlessly. I can run Cyberpunk, you know, and of course Cyberpunk's had however many years of patches to get that optimized. But that's the point, you know, like often with Xbox, the games just work because they've gone through like more rigorous testing, and also the hardware is fixed. So the developers know exactly what they're getting. They know exactly how to build the game for the hardware set in that scenario that they're talking about. Whereas they ain't building a game for my specific setup, you know. I sort of have to predict the general setup and then hope for the best, you know, in some cases. And then like optimize post-launch patches in, you know, stuff like that. I just opened Steam and I just downloaded a new update with optimizations for Final Fantasy 16, and I'm wondering like, will that improve the situation there? So I think that's where some people get fed up with it, especially if it's someone who's like they don't have a lot of free time or a lot of patience, and they just want to get in, sit on a sofa, fire up the console, the PlayStation, whatever, and it just all works. No problem. Don't have to dig through Windows. Don't have to go through Reddit threads to make things work. And it all just works, you know. And yeah, like HK Gaming chat says, some PC games just don't run smooth out of the box, and it's definitely true. And I think it's totally valid if you don't have the patience for that kind of shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes I have patience for it, sometimes I don't.
Slipbang007 says, "Good evening, you dirty muckers. So Jez, you played Indiana and Stalker 2. It seems by your enthusiasm that you're looking forward to, or at least more impressed with Stalker 2. I don't think you can answer that question, sir."
Which one was that?
Silipeng. He says you played Indiana and Stalker 2, but it seems, judging by your enthusiasm, that you're more impressed with Stalker 2. But
yeah, I literally can't say. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Um,
Jez does love what he's played as Stalker too, though. He talked a whole lot about it earlier, but can't really compare Indiana Jones because embargo. But yes. Aboris 26.
yeah.
Happy Saturday. I have a PC, ROG Ally, and the Series X. I find the convenience of just having the games work, not having to play with settings, save syncing reliably, and not having to research if it's cross-save or play anywhere leads me to play on console 90% of the time. If the next gen is more PC-like, a $500 mini PC console for the streamer generation, what do you think Xbox needs to get right with the hybrid approach to not alienate the console players? Well, I mean, they've done a lot. I mean, I think just putting out a console is a good step to not alienating the console people, because there are still some folks out there that think Xbox isn't doing hardware, right? That, like, next gen might just be a handheld, or they might just go full third-party publisher and just be like, screw it, we're not doing hardware. So I think just putting out a console in itself would be doing right by console players. I don't know. Like, other than that, I think maybe a new look, maybe a new dashboard. So I don't know. Like, we're in this situation where we're talking about, like, it being more PC-like and all these things, but we're not really sure how that's going to look like or what it actually is yet. So it's really tough to say. But I think just, like, making the console is being like, hey, like, we're still doing this, and as long as the console is powerful enough, and I think most people who are console players will be fine with it. And then, however all the other stuff works internally, we'll see. But,
Yeah, I think getting the interface right and making it, designed for TV, controller, all that kind of stuff, that has to happen. I think, like, the more side loading, Steam, whatever else they do with it, I think that has to be tucked away, and it has to be designed around. It has to be designed for people who want to tinker, I think. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and it could open a world of flexibility for the console. But it absolutely cannot detract from what Xbox is and what people expect of a console that they put underneath their television. So I think that getting the interface right is absolutely crucial. And they are working on this right now with the if you go to the PC and you go to the Insider program on PC and you set up the Xbox Game Bar in compact mode, the work being done there is actually work being done for the hybrid console. So it's very early days yet. It's in beta software, but it looks like the Xbox dashboard. It functions pretty much the same way. Icons there, animates, and it gives you controller access to a lot of those features. But it's an inelegant solution on Windows. It's really inelegant. It's still quite difficult to navigate with the controller because so much of it is designed for a mouse and keyboard. So I think nailing those aspects is absolutely key. Making sure it's polished as hell. It can't release in this sort of messy, buggy beta state, and also all the things that we expect and hope of console gaming, which is like, the games just work, that promise of games just working out of the box, and then features like fast resume, quick resume, whatever. Is that gonna still function when it's running full Windows, because PC games don't quick resume? Like that kind of stuff. So I think like that they have to at least nail the baseline of what Xbox Series X and Series S is offering, and all the PC hybrid stuff that has to be an optional, I think. But we'll see.
Chiefman says, what do you think makes more sense, remastering games for your own audience or releasing your once exclusive games to new platforms? I think it depends on what your goals are. Like, if your goal is to make as much money as possible and you don't really care, then releasing your exclusives to new platforms is the way to go. But I mean, I know because PlayStation remasters a lot of their content, and I think they've talked about that in the past about why they remastered Last of Us Part 1. It was like it came out in 2013, and then they remastered it pretty soon after on the PS4, and they said that by their numbers, the people who had a PS4 at that point in time were like 50% of them didn't have a PS3, which would say a lot of them didn't play Last of Us Part 1 on the PS3, so they felt remastering the game would be a good business decision. And indeed it did, because the game kept on selling. So I guess there's the way to say, like, use data to say, hey, we have all these new people in our ecosystem. Maybe it's smart money to remaster one of these games so it finds a new audience within our own ecosystem, rather than putting it elsewhere. I mean, I guess it just depends on what your goals are, right?
Yeah. I suppose it ultimately boils down to, what's going to cost, what's going to be more expensive. I think sometimes, like, if you've got the port ready, if the game is an easy port, then you will make more money if it's a completely brand new audience. But remastering the same games over and over again, I don't know I think that has diminishing returns. But clearly it works because they keep doing it. So I guess we'd need to see the numbers to comment further.
Yeah. We got Omen, who says, Happy Saturday. Xbox marketing has really been on a roll lately. Within the past month, we've had marketing beats for Age of Mythology, Age of Empires, Halo, Stalker 2, Fallout 76, Metaphor, Indiana Jones, Aura, Towerbone, Call of Duty, Starfield, Flight Sim, Diablo 4, and Overwatch. If I count that right, that's 14 concurrent marketing campaigns that have all fired off in the past month. So my question is this. Do you think all of those marketing beats have moved the needle on Xbox's public perception? No. If the answer is no, what more do you think Xbox could do to change that? I think the only thing that kind of changed their perception was a little bit was the summer showcase, when it was basically just like a bunch of new games. And I've always said the only thing that'll change public perception is Xbox releasing a string of great high quality releases.
And exclusives, which they're not going to do anymore. So I think I agree that I don't think any of that has moved the needle for Xbox, and I think a lot of it is because it's not associated with Xbox. Age of Mythology and Age of Empires is associated with Steam.
Yeah.
Halo's still got its issues. I think Stalker 2 is probably doing some good there. Fallout 76 is multi-platform, so that's not doing anything. I think Metaphor probably did help a little bit, especially because they had huge Xbox green banners all over Times Square for that game.
But that
probably
sold more on PC and PlayStation, though, for sure.
Yeah, it definitely. But I think it's still. I think that probably did go to some degree to help the perception that Xbox doesn't get those kind of games.
Sure.
And you've also got and I also think because it's a new IP, I think a lot of people in Times Square would have been like, "Oh, Xbox is marketing this game I've never heard of. It must be a big deal if they're buying ads in Times fucking Square." So I think that might have had some impact.
Yeah. Diablo 4 and Overwatch 2 are multiplats, so
yeah, no impact there.
Call of Duty's multiplat, although who knows what the Game Pass stuff is going to do. It's a big moment for them. Big moment for the service.
Oh, I will say Call of Duty. There was a lot of Call of Duty ads in London when I was there this week. No mention of Xbox. There was no Xbox banners. There was no Xbox logos. I was like, what the fuck are you doing? There was no Xbox association with Call of Duty's marketing beats in London whatsoever, which I think is a huge fucking mistake. And I wish I'd managed to snap a picture of what I'd seen, but the bus was going too quick.
Owen says, personally, I think ever since the multiplat push, the overarching narrative continues to be negative for Xbox, and I'm unsure if Microsoft can do much more to try to change the perception.
I really do think that the current install bases are pretty much static. So I don't think, even though there's a lot of Twitter drama right now, I don't know if that's translating into real world harm right now in any sort of meaningful degree. I've already seen a lot of people spin the Black Ops 6 stuff as like, oh, this is crucial for Xbox. If Black Ops 6 doesn't blow up on Game Pass, then Xbox is dead. But I've also seen the opposite argument where it's like, oh, Game Pass is going to kill Black Ops because no one's going to buy it. Mm-hmm. So it's like, there's this constant sort of like, oh, which argument are you really in favor of here?
In fact, I saw someone that said that Call of Duty being on Game Pass is actually more beneficial to PlayStation than Microsoft in general. That PlayStation is the one's going to win out because they'll make the most money off of Call of Duty.
I mean, I mean, there's certainly a potential argument to be made there, but I also wonder if, like, at least at launch, maybe that's true, but over time, when you've got like,
I don't know how you can say that considering 70% of the money made on 70% of the money made on the PlayStation versions is going to Microsoft, and 100% in the other ones.
yeah,
You know?
true, but I mean, like, even if it was true about the sales, then it's like even that argument that they're making, like, over time, even though the math doesn't add up, over time, it's like
it'd be funny
you give it a free to play, you give it sort of a free to play kind of existence where it's like even people who don't buy the game, they will potentially go off and buy skins,
yeah,
which I think is part of the
maybe.
monetization strategy there.
But you notice like both the examples you listed of like, oh my god, it's gonna destroy Call of Duty because it's in Game Pass, or it might destroy Xbox because of Game Pass. They're all, they're both like two negative. It's like either Microsoft loses in both instances. Like one, they ruin the golden goose, or two, it ruins Game Pass. But where's the third option where like everything goes well and it actually improves Call of Duty's player count and people spend more money, and it also basically proves that Game Pass is the right model, or at least a sustainable model, and Game Pass flourishes. Like nobody talks about that third option, maybe because they feel that's unrealistic. But it's like those the two options, and they're both of them are negative. It's quite small, but smells like a big one. Says, is the reason we haven't seen anything on Forza Horizon 6 because the entirety of Playground Games is working on Fable at this point? Do they have separate internal teams for these projects? Yes, they do. Right? They do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're working on Forza Horizon 6, and you can make the argument that they don't need Forza Horizon 6 this past year because Forza Horizon 5 is still doing incredibly well. I mean, it just hit 40 million players, I think. And I sort of, like, with the late DLC releases for Forza Horizon 5 in comparison to the other ones, I've sort of felt like maybe they were taking more time. So, I mean, I'm sort of expecting Forza Horizon 6 to be next year because I just can't see them waiting 5 years to put out that game. So my expectation is Forza Horizon 6 is next year. Just because it'll be 4 years at that point in time. And, I mean, it's possible that they get closer to finishing Fable and they want a lot of people on it. But, I mean, they got the one studio at Playground working on it. But then they also have, like, Eidos Montreal working on it. And I think that's most of that studio working on that game. And they probably have other co-studios working on that game, co-dev studios. So, yeah. We'll see. I'll be really surprised if we don't see Forza Horizon 6 next year. I just can't see them going 5 years in between games. Even though Forza Horizon 5 is doing incredibly well, it seems like way too long. Good on Conwood says, hello, Rand and Jez. A couple of weeks ago, one of the patrons, or it might have been a super chatter, as I can't find who said it, chided Jez for doing a bad job in trying to sell Rand and investing time in reading or watching quality anime and manga. And you know what? He's right. Jez's attempts in trying to sell Delicious in Dungeon has been something short of embarrassing. So here's 5 reasons why Rand should put Netflix's Delicious in Dungeon on his playlist. Studio Trigger produced the series. Yes, the same Studio Trigger who produced Cyberpunk Edgerunners, which is a show we know Rand likes. In fact, the same director of Edgerunners also directed episodes of Delicious in Dungeon. It's a pure fantasy world. This is not to say that putting magic monsters and races with long ears immediately makes something fantasy, but it isn't weird. But it isn't a weird meld of our world and magic. The world is completely realized. That is, its world building makes internal sense and not just in a biological faction. Social, economic, and political elements also build this world up, and it's not shoved down one's throat like poorly written stories do, and we all know how Rand likes his world building. The characters are relatable and lovable without being cliche, and while they have their own history, they don't have dark and tragic pasts which would make the source material moody. This is a fun comedic anime with action and thrills. And yes, the show is about eating, but in the same way the bear is about running a restaurant. So there you go.
Wow, dude, you should write reviews, man. That was great. It's better than I could have done.
Yeah.
It's a fun show, man. It's just a really fun show. But if you just want something chill to watch, yeah. Just want something chill to watch with great animation, but like occasional fights, but then also hilarious comedy. I really enjoyed the Listening Dungeon. I haven't finished it yet though, but I'm like halfway through it. But I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I went from Delicious in Dungeon to the fucking Berserk manga. Oh man, which is depressing as
Couple
hell.
of super chats and then we'll get out of here. We got JF with the 5. Spider-Man 2 to PC in January. The PSN PC ports are getting faster and faster, making the PC the ultimate device for gaming. Makes you worry for consoles. I mean, I think we got at least another generation of consoles. And then, you're talking about 2035 or, PS6 comes out in 2028. Then you think 6-7 years and you're looking at like 2035 at that point. I don't know. I don't know what the world looks like 10 years from now. Maybe we just have one gen left of just PlayStation and Xbox, and then they do whatever. I don't know. And Amashi says,
I just want to shout out OC9 C Mine, who just upgraded on Patreon. Thank you so much.
Thanks. He says California is lazy, expensive, and the rest of the world is now making better games. Stalker 2, I hope. Space Marine 2. Refantasia versus Concord. I wouldn't say Concord's lazy. I think they just missed the beat. I think they realized they were just too late to the market with their game in a genre that people just didn't care anymore. And I wouldn't say they're lazy. It's just they made a game that nobody wanted. It happens sometimes. Of course, this was like the ultimate nobody wanted it because so much money was spent on it. But yeah, Maybe like you could say like they didn't take feedback, but I wouldn't call them lazy. It sucks, man. You made a game that nobody cared about, and
Diablo came out of California, man. And I like for all Diablo's flaws, I would never call it lazy.
Yeah. But anyways, I think that's it for the podcast, Jez. I am really getting hungry because I haven't eaten. So
I haven't eaten either.
I'm going to get out of here and I'm going to make some of my chicken in an air fryer with some broccoli. And we will be back hopefully on Tuesday with an Xbox 2+1. If not, we'll be back here on Friday with another Xbox 2 next week. Hope you guys have a great rest of the day. Enjoy your weekend. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Thank you to all the Patreons. Thank you to Manscaped for sponsoring. Well, not sponsoring this episode, but, if you got something you want to buy at Manscaped, use code XB2. 20% off. And until then, guys, keep it gaming. Later.
Keep it gaming, guys. Thanks, everyone.